well. So it's like a whole community that we have here on Onside Radio through the live YouTube chat. It's a lot of fun. But if you want to reach out to us the other way, which is through the station text line, which is always open, you can get at us at 844-416-8123. That's 844-416-8123. That's how you text us here on Onside Radio. We have a lot to get to on today's show. And by the way, we broadcast each and every day here inside of Inter Miami CF Stadium in Fort Lauderdale. I'm looking at a little bit of cloudy sky today, hoping it doesn't rain on my drive home because the drive home is long enough even when the sun is shining. Cloudy skies today, but I see the Fort Lauderdale skyline kissing the horizon off in the distance. And then inside the stadium here, I'm looking at those pink, black, gray, and white seats. And it's a good day today because it's March 18th. We are exactly 1 month away from the regular season debut for Inter Miami CF. And it's going to be a home game. Inter Miami taking on David Beckham's former club, LA Galaxy, to open up the season here at Inter Miami CF Stadium. So we're just 1 month away from that. In the 5 o'clock hour today, we're going to talk some Dolphins and some Deshaun Watson. He's been all over the news these last couple of days with Juan Cardona from One on One here on Onside Radio. He does a great job. In the 4 o'clock hour, talk some Miami Heat and NBA basketball with Ira Winderman from the South Florida Sun Sentinel, the Acura Pembroke Pines Miami Heat Report. Ira will join me for his weekly spot. We usually do it on Mondays. Had to change up the plan today. But honestly, this works out even better because I get the quick turnaround with Ira. We'll have him on today on a Thursday. We'll have him on again on Monday, so I get my Ira fix even more often over the next 4 days or so. And in the 3 o'clock hour, Thursday tradition here on the show, we'll talk some Miami Dolphins and some draft with Kyle Krabs from the Draft Network and the Locked On Dolphins podcast and DolphinsWire.com. The latest move made by the Miami Dolphins today. When this went official, or at least when the reports came out, my immediate reaction was I hated it. But doing a little bit more digging, looking at some of the numbers and some of the stats, I'm warming up to this one. And this is not a blockbuster move, but I see the Dolphins today, first reported by Mike Garafolo from NFL Network. Former Baltimore Ravens center, and we know the Dolphins have been in the market for centers, right? Ted Karras is going back to New England. Former Baltimore Ravens center Matt Skura is headed to the Dolphins on a 1-year deal, his agent David Cantor says. My first reaction when I saw Skura to the Dolphins was, I know Matt Skura for his erratic snaps. So the first thought I had was, dear God, we just signed a center who can't snap. We just signed a center who is going to be putting snaps over Tua Tagovailoa's head because he's been benched for erratically snapping before. I mean, last season he also had to deal with COVID-19, which is, out of his control. But I'm worried because we just signed a center who can't snap the football. I was a little bit upset by this. But listen, guys, you dig a little bit deeper. There's a lot of potential there with Skura, especially on a 1-year deal. It's a prove-it deal. Like, show me you're not going to screw up your snaps and cause fumbles and turnovers. Because as a blocker, this guy's really good. As a blocker, he's borderline special. So Matt Skura ranks number 4 in the NFL in highest pass block win rate for centers and number 10 in the NFL in highest run block win rate as a center. So if the Dolphins can work with him and he can get a little bit more confidence and get rid of the yips that he had as a snapper in recent performances, then you might have yourselves a pretty damn good player as a pass blocker and a run blocker, someone who's going to help Tua stay off of his ass, someone that's going to help Malcolm Brown pick up a couple of extra yards in the running game. So this move may not be as terrible as I initially thought, because like a lot of people, my first recollection, my first memory of Matt Skura was, wait, that's the guy who can't snap the football. Why are we signing him to play center for our football team? And it's not all bad. I think there's a little bit of potential for this move. So we're still waiting on what the future is going to hold for wide receiver. Now, the Dolphins did make a kind of low-impact, low-risk signing with Robert Foster yesterday. I didn't realize, or at least I'd forgotten, that Robert Foster is a former Alabama Crimson Tide player. So there you go. For everyone saying we need to reunite Tua Tagovailoa with former teammates, we need to get the Alabama receiver in here. Be careful what you wish for. You should have been more specific. We need to get the Alabama receiver in here. You were probably talking about Devontae Smith, or you might have been talking about Jalen Waddle. The football gods heard you ask for the former Alabama Crimson Tide receiver, and they give you Robert Foster. So congratulations. I still wonder if there's another move, significant move in the cards for the Dolphins. Now, Dave Hyde wrote a column, which it's a bit of a reality check, but there's always a gray area with this stuff, because Dave Hyde wrote a good piece in the Sun Sentinel this morning. He does math. He does computations. He even had like long division. Well, I don't think long division, but addition and subtraction in his column. He even showed his work in the column. And he pointed out that with the money that the Dolphins currently have free, and with the money that you're going to need to sign your draft picks after they're drafted this coming April and early May, because I think the draft starts at the end of April, and over 3 days it's going to get into May 1st or May 2nd, that you're only going to have, from the number you have today until the end of the draft, you're only actually going to have about $4 million left over under the cap. So I think that number is a little bit sobering, and it kind of reminds you to temper the expectations you might have if you think the Dolphins can just go out in a gigantic free agent spending spree. Now, Hyde notes this in his piece, that it's never black and white when you're talking about cap space, because you can restructure deals. You can do the cap gymnastics. You can find ways to free up more money, or you could still make, because the only cost-cutting move that the Dolphins have made this point was, aside from the trades that they made, which added a little bit of cap space, but the cost-cutting subtraction was Kyle Van Noy, who, wow, he winds up back with the New England Patriots. Imagine that. It's crazy. I mean, every former Patriot that the Dolphins cut ends up back on the New England Patriots. You know what this reminds me of, Tito? About 10 years ago, I'm in a very competitive fantasy football league with my best friend at the time. We were both in the same league, and we had a little scheme where we would trade players to each other based on needs for every week. So we were in collusion. Like, we would help each other's teams out by making strategic trades.
You guys suck.
Well, we got discovered.
Oh, okay, I'm glad.
The party only lasted for about 2 weeks. And then, but by the third week, we were discovered.
We've been foiled, boys.
We've been foiled. But here was the crazy thing about it. I was the only one kicked out of the league. They kept my friend in the league. I was the fall guy. He made me the scapegoat. Like, it made no sense. Like,
he threw you under the bus.
He threw me under the bus.
Oh man,
our friendship has never been the same.
I mean, I feel bad for you, but I mean, hey, you were in cahoots with him, so one of you was going down.
Both of us should have gone down.
I mean, that's not wrong, but I mean, he must have had a strong alibi.
And it was really stupid stuff too. Like, we were trading kickers back and forth mostly because
he was
like
playing
based
you the
on
whole time.
Yeah.
You were simply a pawn in his game.
It doesn't feel like that's what Chris Greer is doing with Bill Belichick. It's like Bill, here, Chris. I don't really need Van Noy that much this year. I don't think. Karras, like, take him on for a year, and then you can cut him, and I'll bring him back. It's like a weird collusion thing that's going on here between the Dolphins and New England Patriots. It's wild, man. So I want to on the other side dive headfirst into the growing allegations against Deshaun Watson, and what it might mean not only for him, which I can really only speculate on, and what it might mean for his trade value, okay? Because yesterday I would have told you when there was one accuser that nothing's really changed. That the teams that want him are still going to want him just as much, and the teams that want him are still going to be going to be willing to give up just as much as they would have before that single allegation to get this done. But now that you're talking about 3 lawsuits that have been 100% filed, 3 that are in the process, and another 6 allegations that are being vetted, You can't ignore it anymore. I'm not saying he's guilty. I mean, he's gonna have his time in court, and he wants to defend himself. Okay, Deshaun Watson has been very specific. You know, he came out and made a statement about 2 nights ago, vehemently denying any sort of misconduct, saying he's only treated women with nothing but respect, and that this lawyer, Tony Busby, tried to get him to settle for 6 figures under the table, and he refused because he wants to defend himself and clear his name. And he deserves that right. You know, even though these are civil suits and not criminal cases, I would still, for me personally, morally, I would apply the code of innocent until proven guilty. At the same time, once you start to see a pattern like this, I would be irresponsible if I didn't scratch my head and say, I wonder if there's something to this. It was a lot easier for me 24 hours ago to completely dismiss it when there's one allegation. Now that there's upwards of a dozen allegations, I do have to step back and say, I wonder if there's something here, okay? And listen, I'm not the type to hold grudges forever. If Deshaun Watson is able to clear his name and win in court, I am going to look back on it and say, thank goodness he was able to prove his innocence, and thank goodness these incidents were made up, fabricated, didn't happen, okay? I'm not going to hold a grudge when someone clears his name. I'm not the type of person to say that, hey, like, I know nothing actually came out of it, but do you remember when that guy was accused of something? Anybody can be accused of anything, okay? I'm open-minded enough to look at it from either direction. I'm open-minded enough to say, hey, there's a pattern developing here. I wonder if there's more to this story than I was willing to admit 24 hours ago. But I'm also not going to blindly assign guilt until we know more details about this story. So we'll get more into it on the other side. And remember, at around 3:30, Kyle Krabs is going to join us, and we're going to get into a really nerdy football discussion with him, as we always do. You're listening to the only locally owned sports station in South Florida. We are OnsideRadio.com.
We'll be right back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can join us on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623. Listen to OnsideRadio.com anywhere by downloading the MyTuner Radio app in your app store. Or go to MyTunerRadio.com on your web browser. OnsideRadio.com. South Florida sports leader.
Hello, Inter Miami CF fans. Download the Drink AR app and play inside a first-of-its-kind virtual soccer stadium, hosted by Bodega Trevento and Inter Miami CF, and celebrate your passion for soccer from the comfort of your own home. Find the download links on our Instagram account at Treventus and get our wines delivered straight to your home with a discount for all Inter Miami CF fans. Discover Trevento, a shared passion.
Let's raise a cup to the first among us who put themselves last. To the risk takers, the mask makers, the heroes on the front line and online. To the ones keeping shelves full and keeping us hopeful. To those who don't stop and those making all the stops. To the ones who pick up, suit up, and never let us down. From all of us at Dunkin' to all the heroes keeping everyone running, we thank you.
ADHD. It's the child who can't pay attention or sit still in school, right? The answer may be yes. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, can be complicated and it can last a lifetime. Up to 75% of children and adolescents with ADHD have at least one additional mental disorder that requires a comprehensive approach to treatment. Learn more at moretoadhd.com. This message brought to you in partnership with ADA, ACO, and CHAD.
Join the Inter Miami family in 2021 by becoming a 2021 season ticket member. Enjoy enhanced access benefits and pricing not available to general fans. Visit intermiamicf.com/tickets for more information.
You're listening to OnsideRadio.com. Catch up anytime by downloading the MyTuner Radio app. OnsideRadio.com, South Florida's true hometown station.
With Make-A-Wish, the impossible becomes possible. A girl battling cancer can become a race car driver battling the course. The boy showing all the nurses his fire trucks can take the helm of a real one. Wishes can give kids with critical illnesses the strength to keep fighting, get better, and grow up.
Where there's a wish, there's a way.
Wishes need you. Visit Make-A-Wish at wish.org.
Welcome back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can reach out anytime on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
So I'm on the YouTube page now. I'm chatting live with the listeners. Our guy Herman is on there. He says, hey, how many Dolphins fans have stopped following Karras and Van Noy? I did. I'm a little bit more selective on which players I follow. And that's no disrespect to Herman or any because I guess there's different ways to get the Twitter experience, right? I mean, the way for some people to experience Twitter would be the teams that you root for. You're going to find every single player on Twitter, and you're going to follow all of them, and that becomes part of your experience. I do follow some players, but like I follow the ones that I know are good on social media, and I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on this because actually, was it? I can't remember. I feel like Michael Christian has told me. Did he say that Van Noy is like a video game streamer, or am I thinking of somebody else completely? I think Van Noy might actually be accurate, but
no, he's a streamer. Yeah,
he's a streamer.
He's a streamer. He's a video game streamer.
But
yeah.
like I don't know, Tito. Have you ever been a Twitter follow in the past year of Van Noy and Karras? Like, do either of them have anything to say on social media?
I don't know about I don't think Karras is a social media guy. I know Van Noy is a little bit more active on, I guess multimedia in general. It's really weird because like 2 years ago, I saw what Kyle Van Noy looked like for the first time when he was on the Patriots, and I was like,
I don't think I actually know what he looks like.
Oh, okay.
Like I've watched him play
I'll just say this.
all year last year. I don't think I know what I couldn't pick him out of a lineup.
Very punchable face.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, he's got like straight out of Step Brothers, like very punchable face. Okay, like just a dude who looks annoying and he kind of is annoying. And now I'm not denying that he did a good job for the Dolphins this past year. He did fine, right?
Yeah.
Did what he needed to do.
He's no Van Ginkel.
Right. You know, clearly he doesn't have the hair receptacles that Van Ginkel has. But
no, Van Ginkel is a guy. I feel like I follow him on social media.
You might.
Yeah, like I interviewed him once through a different outlet, and he's a really, really cool guy, as you would expect for the rock star hair that he has. But he's a really, really nice dude. But I don't know. I'm pretty. I think I follow Tua just because. But you know what? If Tua were to get traded, I'm really not expecting that to happen now. But if Tua were to get traded, I'd probably unfollow him. So.
Oh yeah.
I think Herman is onto something there. I think Herman is onto
Sorry.
something. Any Dolphins fans who had been following Ted Karras and Kyle Van Noy on social media, you might as well hit the unfollow button, okay?
Yeah, because Van Noy tweeted out, "It's personal." All right, Kyle. Okay, you got paid, buddy. Relax.
Yeah, you got paid here, and he's getting paid decent money in New
You're
England.
going back
again.
to New England, where you love the media there and not here. Go ahead.
It's going to be a different experience without Tom Brady. Brady was there the last time.
Enjoy
he
your
played
December there in New England, Kyle.
And enjoy your December with 5 wins in December with Cam Newton as your
Yeah.
quarterback. Have fun. So here's a statement by Tony Busby, the lawyer who's representing the women that are accusing Deshaun Watson of sexual assault. Again, it's reaching a point, guys, where I can't approach this story the way that I approached it yesterday, okay? Because yesterday we had one accuser and this somewhat shady lawyer. I'll get more into that in a second. One accuser, a shady-sounding lawyer, and so it was very easy for me to do 3 hours yesterday where I could tell you something stinks about this story. Something doesn't seem right. Something seems peculiar about the timing of it when you know that Deshaun is going through a very public dispute with Houston Texans ownership, and then you have a Houston-based lawyer who has, potential connections to the McNair family because he's a former neighbor of Cal McNair's father, Bob McNair, and there are rumors about how close he may or may not be with the McNair family. And so you have to kind of wonder, is this a mafia type of move where, McNair didn't like the way that Deshaun Watson is, disrespecting his Houston Texans, so he's going to turn around and disrespect Deshaun Watson right back with his lawyer friend making these allegations. But again, when one allegation turns into three, and three turns into six, and six turns into up to a dozen with, I don't know if there's any more that may come out of the woodworks here, I have to stand back, take a step back, and say there's a pattern developing here. I have to see how this plays out. But I have one opinion that's not changing, okay? If these allegations are real, if these allegations are legitimate, and if they are, God bless these women, and I'm so sorry you had to go through this. If these allegations are real, I wish they had found a more professional lawyer, because they found Saul Goodman. They found a guy who comes off like a celebrity ambulance chaser type of lawyer, and I'm so sorry if these allegations are real, because the lawyer that they've chosen continues to make this more about himself than it is about his clients who are allegedly victimized, and I don't think that's fair. So you can call this guy the Instagram lawyer. Like he's making all these statements on the gram. He writes, third lawsuit of now 6 to be filed against Deshaun Watson, alleging assault. This one is the most egregious to date, he writes. Sounds like a 13-year-old girl writing in her diary, the way that this guy words things. Again, I won't share details here, but we have open courts in our Texas Constitution, meaning all lawsuits are public record. Our staff has received numerous calls. We screen each one, and I personally talk with and screen any individual on whose behalf we file. I've been doing this a long time, he says. I don't need, quote-unquote, fame, which, I don't know, kind of sounds like what he's after. And to be quite honest, and I say this as modestly as I can, if I never make another penny, I would be quite okay. Point is, I'm not pursuing these cases for the money. And every woman who has filed thus far has only pled the minimum amount to invoke the court's jurisdiction, which is $500. This isn't about the money. And to be clear, he writes, I've had many high-profile cases in my life. I represented a sitting governor when he faced life in prison. I've represented widows, orphans, amputees, and those horribly burned or injured. As led, I've handled many mass torts and class actions recovering hundreds of millions of dollars. I've tried and won some of the largest cases in Texas history, but I will say I've never faced the nastiness and vitriol I've experienced in this case. People are crazy, he writes, threatening my kids, people I know, threatening my fiancée, telling me they will kill me or hope I die, all because of football. Get a grip, he says, yet we won't be deterred or intimidated by keyboard warriors. As a recon Marine, I've seen danger. I'm not all concerned by dumb shits with keyboards. Ha-ha. I'll continue to proudly represent those who are written off and marginalized in our society. These cases are exactly why many of us become lawyers. He's Saul Goodman. You have found Saul Goodman to represent you, and it's unfortunate because this is one of the reasons why, when this story came up yesterday, why I reacted so skeptically. Not only the timing of the first allegation, which, again, has turned into many, but the way that the man taking the cases is speaking. This guy does not sound like a professional to me. He sounds like the type of person who you're at a party with, and he's the most interesting man at that party, and then you come to realize at the end of the night that 85% of the stories he told you were completely made up. This guy, he sounds like an attention seeker, this lawyer. So I do have to wonder, though, and Tito, do you look at it kind of the same way that I do here, in that I can't really blindly defend Deshaun Watson when and I've read some of the accounts of these allegations, and again, if true, it sounds pretty bad. So I can't blindly defend the guy. I have to kind of sit back and wonder where this roller coaster is going to take us.
Yeah, I think the kind of approach that now needs to be taken is this is no longer a one-off, and it's become somewhat of a massive situation that seems like it's only growing into a more terrible situation. So I think, like you have to take a much larger and much more introspective approach in the sense of not rushing to conclusions anymore. And I think your thoughts on the lawyer are valid too. Like the nature in which he is kind of, I guess, idolizing the situation and spotlighting it, and the comments he's making don't come off as professional. So
Right.
That's where I kind of feel like, if we're going to make it about him, then the lawyer, then yeah, absolutely. There is 100% a suspicious nature into the way he's acting about this. But in terms of the overall Deshaun Watson situation with these allegations, at this point, I don't think there's anything but, being patient and letting the situation play out and wait to determine the facts.
And for that reason, this actually could affect his trade value. Okay. I don't know exactly how many teams are interested in Watson. Maybe it's only 3 or 4 that think they actually have the capital to get a deal done, right? I know Carolina is desperate for a quarterback. The Jets would seem like a team that would be aggressive. I can't say for sure on the Dolphins, because initially it sounded like the Dolphins would aggressively pursue Deshaun Watson. Lately, we hear a lot of the opposite. Prior to these allegations, of course, and then there are a number of other. I mean, he's a top 5 quarterback in the league, so the vast majority of teams in the NFL would have an upgraded quarterback if they were to acquire Deshaun Watson. I think this has to affect his trade value, if nothing else. Where any team interested in him, don't you kind of have to put it on standby? You're up against the clock here, okay? Because this kind of has to get done before the draft, right? I mean, I know that, technically, any time before the season begins, Houston could trade Deshaun Watson, but when you're talking about acquiring multiple draft picks for him, you'd like to know at least where one of those first-round picks is going to be in the draft, right? Where if you make the trade before the draft, if I get the Dolphins pick, it's 3. If I get the Jets first-round pick, it's number 2. If I get Carolina's pick, it's number 8. So if you wait until after the draft and you're getting multiple first-rounders, you have no idea where any of those are going to actually be in the draft. But I think any team interested in Watson has to sit back and say, I don't want to pull the trigger on a trade tonight. Because what if tomorrow more substance comes from these allegations, more allegations come out? I don't want to put myself up Schitt's Creek, so to speak. We're going to talk with Kyle Krabs at Grinding the Tape on Twitter, DolphinsWire.com. His work is impeccable. Kyle Krabs is going to join us to talk some Miami Dolphins football when we return. Hey, get the brutal honesty every day from noon to 3 p.m. with the big O and the Onside Zone. Exclusively here on OnsideRadio.com.
Onside Radio, the only choice for the South Florida sports fan. We'll be right back to the man of the match with Alex Donno. You can join us on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623. Listen to every Inter-Miami CF match on your home for La Rosa Negra, OnsideRadio.com. Catch us every day on the MyTuner Radio app. Get the brutal honesty every day with the Onside Zone with a big O from 12 noon to 3 p.m. every weekday on your home for sports talk in South Florida. OnsideRadio.com.
Join the Inter-Miami family in 2021 by becoming a 2021 season ticket member. Enjoy enhanced access benefits and pricing not available to general fans. Visit intermiamicf.com/tickets for more information.
Parents, we know we can't protect our kids from everything. Eventually, they're going to bump their heads or scrape their knees. But we can protect them from 6 types of cancer. HPV, or human papillomavirus, is a common preventable virus that can cause cancer later in life. The HPV vaccine prevents human papillomavirus and all the cancers it can cause. The American Cancer Society recommends getting your sons and daughters the HPV vaccine starting at age 9 to protect them later in life.
He has an overbite that makes him look like a cartoon character. a slightly crooked eye, and an uncommonly wrinkly neck. In the right light, he can look a little like a garden gnome, and he'll wear a bow tie just because. Sure, you might call him a little quirky, but that's exactly what makes him so perfect. Tuna is a 3-year-old Chihuahua Dachshund mix with more than 700,000 followers on Instagram, and it all started because he was adopted. You can't buy a best friend like Tuna, but you can adopt one. Help us save them all at bestfriends.org.
Keeping you informed in the world of sports. With an OnSideRadio.com sports update.
Miami Heat coming up short yesterday against the Memphis Grizzlies. Heat fall 89-85, 22-19 on the year now. They remain in 4th place in the East. They get another chance to get a win tomorrow night. They host the Indiana Pacers. Tip-off slated for 8 p.m. Florida Panthers back on the ice tonight. They take on the Nashville Predators. That game starts at 7 p.m. Panthers going as a -210 betting favorite. And Miami Dolphins making some moves in free agency, signing former Ravens center Matt Askura. Askura started 31 of 34 career games in the NFL. With your Onside Sports Update, I'm Tito Bonacci. Coming up next, it's more of Man of the Match with Alex Donno right here, OnSideRadio.com.
You're listening to the station with more live and local sports talk than anyone else in South Florida. OnSideRadio.com. Broadcasting from South Florida to the world. Welcome back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can reach out anytime on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
Our next guest is the Director of Scouting for the Draft Network, lead editor of DolphinsWire.com, host of Locked On Dolphins and the Draft Dudes podcast as well. All of his work is awesome. Kyle Krabs joins us, and you can follow him on Twitter at Grinding the Tape. Good afternoon, Kyle. Another busy week in the NFL. How are you?
Happy Thursday, Dono. It's nice to get some traction moving towards this 2021 draft and get an idea of who some of the transactions are going to be for Miami. And maybe not necessarily the off-season start that everybody was envisioning, but certainly the off-season start that if you look back at the start of this rebuild, there were some clues here that this was kind of going to be the mentality more years more often than not.
And do you think is this your preferred approach? Because like you said, we got the tip before free agency even started. I mean, Brian Flores was quoting the Rolling Stones lyric, "You can't always get what you want," and Chris Greer had a pretty measured approach, and yet a lot of fans still expected big splashes to be made. That's certainly not been the case. Do you think that this is the right approach? Because, the fan base did get a little bit spoiled, for better or for worse, over the years in the Stephen Ross era with a lot of big signings. It's not playing out that way right now.
Yeah, I don't know if spoiled even the right word, right? Because, how often did it really translate to success? And that's kind of where I'm so surprised by some of the harsh reactions that you see from fans who are anxious to get the ball rolling, and they're desperate for the team to surround Tua with weapons, and now they're apprehensive about Matt Skura replacing Ted Karras instead of David Andrews. But Chris Greer talked about when they did this whole thing back in 2019 that they wanted to build a long-term winner and have sustainable success. And the model for sustainable success, there's technically an inverse relationship between the amount of money that you spend in free agency and typically how much you win football games. So I appreciate that the Dolphins are, again, kind of going with some creativity with some of the trades that we've seen them materialize. They're going with more economic values. They're going to move with volume, understanding, and Dolphins fans should understand this. Not every transaction, just like we saw last offseason, is going to hit, because nobody bats 1,000. Nobody does not miss it. But if you move with more volume and you have more flexibility with your moves and your approach, which is how the Dolphins are structuring contracts and how they're choosing to spend, it gives you more opportunities to pivot off of the moves that don't work, and then you can double down on the ones that do.
I think the position where people were especially hoping for a splash was wide receiver, because there are some big names who are or were free agents, and the only move that they've made so far was a pretty uneventful one in signing Robert Foster. So, but when you think about the players who came up in a lot of these conversations and maybe still can, like Galladay and Juju Smith-Schuster, do you think it's fair to have reservations? Because it's been a slower wide receiver market than we thought, and a lot of the guys who have been available maybe don't have the best injury histories, and then maybe for a guy like Smith-Schuster, there might be some concern over the TikToking and the dancing on the logo and all that. So do you feel like there's one of these bigger names the Dolphins should be going after?
Well, the one that I liked coming into the free agency window was Curtis Samuel, who ended up signing in Washington yesterday for, I think it was $11.5 million. Annual average salary was what he landed for. And you think about Juju Smith-Schuster and you think about Kenny Galladay, and stylistically, were they ideal fits or are they ideal fits? Both are still technically on the market. I don't see them being so great of a slam dunk of a fit that Miami should be making them the highest paid free agent on the wide receiver market, and that would require $14 million a year or more. And Miami's just not going to – they've kind of shown their hand here. They know what they think you are worth, and they are going to offer you what they think you're worth. And if you are going to make it strictly about financials, odds are you're probably going to get an offer somewhere else that's a little bit higher, and you're probably going to make that decision with whatever's best for you. But I like that Miami is not getting desperate. I like that Miami is not chasing after or feeling the pressure. Remember, they have 4 top 50 picks. There are opportunities, much like the Dolphins did last year in the draft when they struck out on running backs. They made a move and they traded for Matt Breida. Was Matt Breida the best fit stylistically for what Miami was trying to do? No, and we knew that in hindsight, or you kind of had a feeling of that in foresight with San Francisco running so much outside zone and Miami trying to do more inside in between the tackles running. But they made a move. They didn't panic, and they made a move. It was one of those, and I just got done talking about, you make transactions in volume, you're going to have hits and you're going to have misses. That one missed. But the Dolphins, if they strike out, so to say, on the wide receiver market, what's to stop you from calling Chicago and offering a day 3 pick for Anthony Miller, who was a second-round pick a few years ago, who had 7 touchdowns as a rookie and 650 receiving yards in 2019? Or calling up the Dallas Cowboys and asking about Michael Gallup, who's in a contract year and has almost 2,000 yards receiving over the last 2 seasons, and they're not going to be able to afford to pay him. Dallas has over $215 million in cap commitments for 2022, and they just used their other first-round pick from this past year on CeeDee Lamb, plus having Amari Cooper, and they just paid Dak Prescott. Yeah. So, there's options out there. And Miami not panicking to the market, I think, is a good thing.
I like it. Kyle Krabs joins us here on Onside Radio. The texter brings up an interesting point in the YouTube chat, and it's a reminder that, even though every Dolphin fan wants upgrades at wide receiver, they do have a lot of players under contract, even if a lot of them are unremarkable. He brings up the Dolphins have Parker, Grant, Williams, Bowden, Wilson, Perry, Merritt, Hearns, and Foster at wide receiver. He says, considering everyone is expecting them to draft a wide receiver, and it could be more than one, by the way, does it make sense to trade any of them? And he also says, will any of them be cut? So basically, out of the large group of wide receivers that are on the roster, do you expect that some of those, Kyle, and maybe who do you expect won't actually be on the team next season?
Well, I think Miami needs to make sure they secure a replacement before they move. So I know that's one of the big questions is why is Miami moving from Allen Hearns or Albert Wilson or Jakeem Grant and restructuring these deals and manufacturing more space or cutting these guys to get more spending power space so they can go out. Well, each of the wide receivers, like they have their own subsections of the wide receiver room that do different things. And to cut a guy to make space to sign somebody who doesn't fill that need really just feels like you're pigeonholing yourself even more. So who do I think is probably going to be gone? I think Allen Hearns is going to be challenged to make the team. Albert Wilson it seems as though the Dolphins like him enough to keep him around despite the fact that there's some modest cap savings that could be had there. And obviously he was not healthy the last time we saw him until the end of the season in 2019, and then he opted out of 2020. So we haven't seen him for a long time. I think those two guys are kind of the ones that should feel the most pressure right now, depending on what direction. Now, if Miami goes out and gets another 6'3" physical guy that plays outside, then all eyes on Preston Williams, who has not been able to finish each of his first 2 seasons in the NFL due to injuries. But I would anticipate those shifty, speedy guys are the ones that have the most pressure at this point in time.
Kyle Krabs joins us here on Onside Radio. An area that's become more of a need based on transactions, outgoings, and lack of incomings is pass rusher. So it seems to me, Kyle, that there's more urgency to address that, maybe even in the earlier part, maybe not third overall, but in the earlier part of the draft. So who do you see out there who may be an 18th or 36th overall pick that could fit the Dolphins at edge rusher?
Well, I think something that is worthwhile to remember is Brian Flores as somebody off the Bill Belichick tree. New England defenses oftentimes have not featured some blue chip 12 to 15 sack a year kind of guy, and everybody's kind of by committee. And would it stun me to see them go that direction and kind of get a mid-tier free agent here and then draft somebody on day 2 of the NFL draft and maybe not make it this super high priority given how much they blitz and their pressure packages and manufactured pressures and overloads? No. So if you were to look at it at 18, I think Gregory Rousseau and Jalen Phillips of Miami are two that are talent-wise worthwhile of the discussion. I don't know if the league's going to end up coveting either one of those two there. Jalen, because there were some questions about his retirement at UCLA before he transferred over to Miami. He came back. He's been phenomenal for the Canes this past year. Rousseau didn't play this past year. He's a little bit more raw and developmental. Is that the kind of player that the Dolphins want to really swing on when they appear to be getting ready to transition and being a contender? Kwity Paye from Michigan is kind of the pro-ready guy. And, you got to worry a little bit about the Raiders at 17 right in front of Miami. But the good news is that they just went out and they signed Yannick Ngakoue. So they're not going to necessarily be super high up in the pass rusher market. So Paye's kind of the guy, if you're looking for a plug-and-play that could step in and provide a boost, he's got the athleticism and the size that's going to check the boxes for the Dolphins.
Over the past day, we see allegations and accusations against Deshaun Watson, continuing to mount. I think at this time yesterday, it would have been easier for me or for anybody to kind of brush the one allegation aside and say, well, okay, we'll see what happens here. I don't know if that really does anything to the trade value. But at this point today, Kyle, could this, at least for right now, kind of send a message to potential Deshaun Watson suitors that might have to say, hey, I wanted to make a great offer tonight, but now I need to at least wait to see how this plays out? Because, again, yesterday, it was easy for me to say that, hey, this lawyer sounds a little bit shady and it's one accusation, but then one turns into 6, and there are rumors that there could even be 6 more on top of the 6 that we know about. So do you think teams now have to step back and say, we need this process to play out before we can consider bringing in Deshaun Watson? Yeah,
I definitely think you need a lot more clarity on a developing situation that has a lot of layers to it that need to be worked through and vetted, and due process has to take place there, and football is the last thing that we should be focused on in this situation. So I think you could throw this one on the back burner for now, and we need to figure out what the heck's going on with this situation in general before anybody's going to be ready to pony up a trade offer unless they do their own investigation. It just seems like there's way too much information for that to happen anytime soon.
Well said, and good stuff as always here from Kyle Krabs. You can check out his work at DolphinsWire.com, which is a must-visit. I mean, every day Dolphins fans should be logging on to DolphinsWire.com because Kyle posts all – actually, you know what, Kyle? I do have one more thing before I let you go. I want to make sure I ask you about Matt Skura, who the Dolphins signed to play center, because when I first saw the headline, initially my first thought was, hey, this guy had the yips. He has trouble snapping, but he is a very good blocker. So if he can work on the snapping mechanics a little bit, and it's a 1-year deal. So how do you feel about this acquisition?
Yeah, he started 51 games in his first 4 seasons in the NFL for the Baltimore Ravens. Like that's no small feat. And Baltimore is routinely one of the more physical offensive lines in all of football. So the snap issues last year are well documented. It was the first thing everybody talked about when the signing was announced. But in 2019, Skura was a really, really good player and was in consideration for this prominent contract extension as a restricted free agent. So I would give this one a little bit of time. I know everybody had all their eggs in the David Andrews basket, but the Dolphins are going to zig when you think they're going to zag. And the Dolphins were reported to be the leaders in the clubhouse for David Andrews for the entire week. And then we get down here and either Miami wasn't coming up on the price or David had other plans, and whatever that situation was, Miami had a backup plan, and it was within what their budget dictated. And if he plays to his 2019 potential, it's going to be a steal, and it'll be an upgrade over Ted Karras. So give this one time. And my advice to any Dolphins fan that's super apprehensive and angry right now or frustrated right now, you can be angry and frustrated in July. But the offseason is in its infancy. Like, we haven't even gotten started yet. It feels like there's so many things that have happened, but these opportunities for trades to develop and other veterans to get cut and the draft process and free agents that are still out there, there's so much yet to happen. So if you get to July and you don't like what you see when you look at the Dolphins roster, you can be frustrated then. But, don't ride the roller coaster right now every time a headline comes in.
Love it. Great stuff. Follow Kyle on Twitter at Grinding the Tape. Kyle Krabs, thank you so much, and enjoy your weekend coming up.
Thanks. You too, Donno.
Awesome stuff as always there from Kyle. Hey, guys, we'll wrap up the 3 o'clock hour when we come back. Saturdays at 8 a.m., baseball fans can go deep into the count with Alex Aguirre and Christian Chase. Catch the show that talks Marlins and all the big stories in Major League Baseball. Every Saturday, 8 a.m., Seamheads have a new home. Listen to Deep Into the Count exclusively at OnsideRadio.com.
We'll be right back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can join us on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623. You're listening to the only sports station in South Florida that likes to take your calls. 888-441-4623. We connect with a South Florida sports fan because we are South Florida. Locally owned and operated. 888-441-4623. OnsideRadio.com. South Florida's home for real sports talk. You can connect with us at OnsideRadio.com by sending us a text at 844-416-8123. Save it on your cell phone, 844-416-8123. No better place to send your comments, ask questions, win prizes. OnsideRadio.com, the only choice for the South Florida sports fan.
For over 20 years, Mr. Glass has been committed to the safety and satisfaction of our clients. Our products are the culmination of innovative engineering, aesthetic appeal, and the highest levels of quality. Through our legacy, Mr. Glass strives to impart the true meaning of quality, service, and sustainability to new generations. Reputation, experience, and trust is why clients choose Mr. Glass. Live the future now. Locate a dealer near you today.
At Baptist Health, we are ready
to serve, to treat,
to safely proceed with your procedure.
We're ready for ER visits and office visits
with skilled surgeons,
advanced medicine,
and multidisciplinary teams.
We're ready for new arrivals
and new recoveries.
We are ready.
We're ready to diagnose, treat, and manage
anything that comes our way
with exceptional care and comfort.
With the same preparedness and compassion you've come to expect from Baptist Health.
And we are ready.
We're ready.
We're ready
to care for you.
Can I get a captain?
Captain and what?
Captain and Ginger.
I can't hear you.
Captain and Ginger. He was a captain and Ginger. Captain and Ginger. He was a captain and Ginger.
Captain Morgan, official partner of Major League Soccer.
Every Thursday, NBA fans can catch one of the best basketball shows in the country when Ethan Skolnick and Ira Winderman host Inside the Paint. Listen to two of the most knowledgeable and connected reporters in the business. Get year-round insight every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. with Inside the Paint on the home for hardcore basketball fans. OnSideRadio.com.
Big O for M&S Air Conditioning. You know, air quality in your home and business is more important than ever. That's why you've got to call M&S Air Conditioning and let them install a high-efficiency polarized air filter in your AC unit. Folks, it attracts, captures, and destroys biological contaminants to improve your air quality. With stellar customer service, answering your call from 7:30 a.m. till 9 o'clock p.m. For more info on high-efficiency air filters and their preventative maintenance plans, visit M&S Air Conditioning at ac-florida.com.
You're listening to this station with more live and local sports talk than anyone else in South Florida. OnSideRadio.com. Broadcasting from South Florida to the world. You're listening to the only sports station in South Florida that likes to take your calls. 888-441-4623. We connect with a South Florida sports fan because we are South Florida. Locally owned and operated. 888-441-4623. OnSideRadio.com. South Florida's home for real sports talk. Welcome back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can reach out anytime on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
I'm so happy right now, man. I want people to stop disrespecting Chris Greer. I want you to stop dragging that man's name through the mud. Why are you being so conservative? Why aren't you signing everybody? What are you doing? Why are you fiddling while Rome is burning? Actually, I'm the one who said that last one. Forget I said anything. The Dolphins are doing something, my friends, and I like this move a lot. Adam Schefter tweets 2 minutes ago. This means we might have to redo the entire Kyle Krabs interview. Can we get Kyle Krabs back on the phone? He says former Texans wide receiver Will Fuller. You know what the Houston Texans are? They're our bitch. The Houston Texans are our bitch. We're going to take their best players. You know, you know what? I wanted your quarterback yesterday. I'm not sure I want your quarterback now.
We might not. We might, though.
Your quarterback's radioactive right now.
Yeah.
Maybe he won't be tomorrow.
We'll take your best receiver, though. How about that?
We're going to take your best receiver. We're going to trade you players and fleece you for draft picks. Former Texans wide receiver Will Fuller reached agreement with the Miami Dolphins per source. That's according to Adam Schefter. Dave Hyde's going to have to rewrite his entire column. Dave Hyde wrote a column this morning about how, the Dolphins are only going to have $4 million left under the cap after they sign their draft picks. Redo that math, Dave. Woo! Well, what calculator were you using? Piece of shit, that's what you were using for a calculator. Redo that math, Dave Hyde. The Miami Dolphins are getting Will Fuller. Oh, man. 8 touchdowns last year. 11 games played, 16.6 per reception.
That's a big stat right there.
That is a huge stat. I like Fuller a lot, man. I like Will Fuller a lot. And this is only the beginning, Tito, is the scary thing. It's like adding Will Fuller, great addition, really nice addition, and they're still going to end up drafting Jamar Chase.
That's right. Oh, my God. We're surrounding Tua with weapons, Donno. This is what we've talked about, right?
Tua's going to be good by accident. Like, even if Tua sucks,
he can throw it right-handed and throw a touchdown at this point.
We might draft Kyle Pitts. Oh, my Lord.
This is, wow, big signing. According to Ian Rappaport, it looks like it is a one-year deal with more than $10 million.
And you know, it's true. Diana Rossini tweeted out the other day that since the wide receiver market has been so poor that an unnamed, I wonder if it was Will Fuller, but an unnamed free agent receiver told Diana Rossini that he would only consider signing a one-year deal because the market is just so depressed for wide receivers that he just wanted to sign a one-year deal because then next year you get a new deal. There's going to be new salary cap, and the league, I want to get to this in the 4 o'clock hour, but the league signed like a new gigantic TV deal. So there's going to be a lot of money coming in 2022 and beyond. So the salary cap, which is down this year, is going to go way up the year after that. And so you know what? Will Fuller, this is an audition, my friend. If you show Chris Greer and Brian Flores, you can stay on the field consistently because he has had some injury concern. I mean, not concerns, but, he hasn't he's never played 16 games in a season. 11, 7, 10, 13. He's never played 16 games in a season. So you show Brian Flores you can stay healthy and be at your best for 16 games, maybe we'll consider giving you a long-term deal after this year. And if you suck, go back to Houston with your tail between your legs. 844-416-8123. It's 844-416-8123. We got Will Fuller, baby. 4 o'clock hour coming up here on your home for Miami Dolphins fans all over the world, OnsideRadio.com.
We'll be right back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can join us on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623. You're listening to the home of Inter Miami CF.
His strike is a decent one. It's fired into the top right corner. Gonzalo Higuain opens his account for Inter Miami.
OnsideRadio.com, where the passion for La Rosa Negra runs deep. You're listening to OnsideRadio.com. Catch up anytime by downloading the MyTuner Radio app. OnsideRadio.com, South Florida's true hometown station. You're listening to the station with more live and local sports talk than anyone else in South Florida. OnsideRadio.com. Broadcasting from South Florida to the world. Welcome back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno.
It's all yours. Just keep it right here.
You can reach out anytime on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
Yeah, 4 o'clock hour, Man of the Match with Alex Donno. I'm Alex Donno here on OnsideRadio.com. I was already having a great day, and it got even better. Will Fuller is on his way to the Miami Dolphins. So what were the terms again? 1 year deal?
Well, 1 year deal, maybe a little bit, or over $10 million a year. That's what we know.
It's not bad. Not bad at all.
I mean, if we're looking at it from a kind of like what he brings to the Dolphins receiving corps, not that he's a top 5 receiver, but he's a game breaker, right? Like speed, guy who can take the top off of a defense. Somebody with reliable hands. Jakeem Grant.
Well, and let me cut you off there because this move, it tells me the days are numbered for either Jakeem Grant or Albert Wilson. Here's my recommendation to Jakeem Grant: start packing up your locker. Okay, start packing up your stuff. Try not to drop your things like you do footballs. Like when you're unpacking your locker, like you got your pictures of your family, you got your cleats in there. Try not to drop them, bro, because it's time for you to get the hell out of my locker room. I don't know. Maybe my judgment is just clouded by the fact that he dropped too many balls last year. I think the best thing Albert Wilson did last year was opt out because he didn't get a chance to disappoint me last year. So Albert Wilson, it's like I remember the good times. It's right? Like when you get out of like a questionable relationship, and then like 3 months later, oh my God, you're on Facebook. She's already seeing somebody. Her relationship, she's in a relationship now, and then you start to think about the good times. That's how I am with Albert Wilson because we haven't actually seen him suit up and play for like almost 3 years because 2 years ago he had injury. So it's been a while since we've actually seen Albert Wilson, and he was good. I mean, I remember he and Jakeem Grant had a nice little run together when they high-fived on that play where was it Albert scoring a touchdown and Jakeem high-fived him? Like that was pretty neat, man. But no, this town ain't big enough for Will Fuller, Jakeem Grant, and Albert Wilson. One of them has to go. And I will offer my services for a fee to drive Jakeem Grant to the airport. I will charge him less than an Uber, right? Like if the Uber is going to charge you like $9.87 for the Uber X, like to drive you from your place to the airport, I'll charge you $8.50, bro. I'll give you the hometown discount, but I'm taking your ass to the airport and shipping you out of town because I feel like this Will Fuller deal, not only is this an upgrade for the Miami Dolphins, but it makes either one of Jakeem Grant or Albert Wilson become irrelevant to this roster. You know, before the show, I put up a Twitter poll, and everyone vote yes, please, because I put out this poll. You know, this is long before I had any idea Will Fuller could be Dolphins bound. I said, low spending so far. Do the hashtag Dolphins have a master plan for a big move in the near future? The choices are yes and no. And I feel like I think people are going back and voting now, which is fine because this is a 24-hour cap on this poll. So new information, just go and vote your asses off. But yes is the leader in the clubhouse at 51.8%, and no is at 48.2%. Before the Will Fuller move was announced by Schefter and Ian Rappaport, I think no had the slight edge that they do not have a plan. I hoped and suspected that something like this would happen. You know, and you know what? Kudos to the Dolphins front office, because if they had rushed to make this move, because Will Fuller had to be a guy that was on their radar, right? I mean, you think about the guys that could have been on their radar. Obviously, Fuller, who they get a deal done with, the professional TikToker, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kenny Golladay, who I think you really would have to overpay for. You know, when you go through the options of some of the upper-tier receivers that are free agents this year, if the Dolphins had rushed to agree to a deal right away, they would have overpaid. Like, you think about what they end up getting Will Fuller for 1 year, $10 million. How much would they have offered to him if they had rushed to get this done on Monday when the legal tampering period started? So sometimes patience pays, my friend. We were all getting FOMO, fear of missing out in free agency. First day of legal tampering, the Dolphins are doing nothing. Second day of legal tampering, you start to cherry pick a couple of like depth players here and there. You're not doing anything significant. And we've got people talking as though they're ready to jump off buildings and bridges. Like, oh, no, we're not making this team better. We're letting the Patriots sign everybody. The Dolphins are not addressing anything. You need to address wide receiver. What are you doing? We talked about this yesterday, remember, on the roundtable, right? The question for the roundtable yesterday was, are the Dolphins just simply not doing enough to help Tua? Like, how can you go through the first 3 days, technically, of free agency? And I know they signed Robert Foster. Oh, whoop-de-freaking-do. I mean, whatever. But this is significant now with Will Fuller. But the Dolphins were so quiet at the wide receiver position over the first 3 days. We know Tua needs help. We know Tua needs more weapons. Let's not forget we still have the draft coming up. But people are freaking out. Like, oh, listen, they're the reason why Tua didn't have a better rookie season. Part of it was he didn't have the sort of weapons that Justin Herbert had. That how is Tua going to be putting up big numbers when he's got, I love the phrase that Tito uses, the Geek Squad employees playing wide receiver for him that are dropping everything he throws in their direction. And, you know, Preston Williams gets hurt last year. Unfortunately, our guy Devontae Parker starts to do Devontae Parker things again, and that's have soft tissue injuries and miss games every couple of weeks. So you didn't have consistency from that wide receiver core, and the running game was non-existent last year. You're not putting your rookie quarterback in a position to succeed. And everyone's like, well, Ryan Fitzpatrick could succeed. He would go out there and spark the Yeah, he's been in the league for 17 freaking years. Like, you know, okay, a guy who's played for 8 different teams and has seen every single coverage and has seen every route that a wide receiver could possibly run. Yeah, okay, he might be able to find a couple of cheat codes to move the football where a rookie quarterback can't. That doesn't mean your rookie sucks. That doesn't mean your rookie isn't any good. Smart Dolphins fans know this. Smart Dolphins fans know that, and this is not the only reason, but smart Dolphins fans know that a big reason why Tua didn't set the world on fire and put up the numbers as a rookie that you were hoping he could put up, and why he got benched in 2 games last year, was because he didn't have enough consistent output from his weapons. And so, yeah, you're freaking out yesterday. Oh, why are they not signing wide receivers? Why is Robert Foster the best we can do? But I wasn't freaking out yesterday because you look at the wide receiver market and it was virtually flatlining. The market was pretty much dead. So, yeah, if you had let time go by Monday and Tuesday and Juju wasn't available, Will Fuller wasn't available. You know, I know you did see, Curtis Samuel gets signed and Marvin Jones gets signed, but, you still had Galladay, Juju, Will Fuller available. If all of those guys had been snatched up by other teams, then, yeah, I'd be right with you storming the Dolphins facility with pitchforks. I'd be right with you on that, but it wasn't the case. And so, Tito, in this situation, patience by Chris Greer paid off. He saw that the market was stagnant, and he was able to take his time and get a deal done on his terms.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. This seems like the Dolphins kind of waited it out, and I think they got a guy that actually really complements the current crop of receivers that they have well and gives them what they were missing. And one of those things that they were missing last year, Donno, was somebody who can create yards after the catch, right? Somebody who can take a 3-yard out or a 5-yard slant or a 10-yard simple go route and make a big play afterwards. Here's some numbers that I kind of find interesting. Yards after the catch, he was ranked number 39 in the league. The Dolphins ranked dead last in yards after the catch. He ranked 13th in the league in total touchdowns last season. And also in terms of completed air yards, he was top 25 with 605 completed air yards. Look, the biggest knock with with Fuller obviously seems to be health. A guy who's missed, I think, over 20 career games so far in his season.
Yeah, I'm looking at his game logs. He played in 11 games last year, 11 games the year before, 7 the year before that, 10 and 14. So he's never played 16 games.
Right, and look, but let's view that in the context of Jakeem Grant and Albert Wilson. Both those guys have their own injury history as well. Wilson, a little bit more damning because it's a hip injury, right?
That's right.
So, I mean, this is the Dolphins making a cheap bargain on a guy who can be a direct spark plug to their receiving core.
Yeah, definitely. Let's read some of the chat conversation. Indade says, "Damn, Donno, that's a little cold for little Jakeem Grant." Rafa in Miami says, "So we could potentially have Chase or Devontae Smith in the first round, plus Parker, Fuller, Preston, Albert Wilson, and Mike Gesicki. That's not bad. Honestly, you throw in Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith, or I would actually love if the Dolphins can trade down a few spots and then still draft Jalen Waddle and then acquire another draft pick in the process by trading down. That would be pretty goddamn excellent. So if you could have like either of those names that Rafa mentioned, Chase or Smith or Waddle, who I don't think they would take at number 3, but Kyle Pitts maybe at number 3. And the thing is, don't think about Kyle Pitts as a tight end. Like, I keep seeing people say, well, hey, you don't need Kyle Pitts because you have Mike Gesicki. There's some rich people out there that probably don't need that Lamborghini because they already have a Ferrari, but they still enjoy the luxury that they get from having both cars. You have to look at it from a best player available standpoint. Can you imagine the mismatches you could have with Kyle Pitts and Mike Gesicki both on the field at the same time, which is doable in today's NFL? And you can line up Kyle Pitts wide. I mean, you can't just pigeonhole him into the tight end position. That guy, consider him an elite pass catcher, not an elite tight end. Just consider him a pass catcher. If you want to draw an analogy to a different sport, whenever Eric Spoelstra talks about positionless basketball, think about positionless football with a guy like Kyle Pitts. You can find a spot for him and Mike Gesicki to get plenty of reps on that field, and Kyle Pitts could be a potential. He's got, I don't want to crown the guy way too early, but he's got Hall of Fame type of potential. I think he's that good. So if you were to come away in the first round with Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle, and you've got now Will Fuller and Devontae Parker, Preston, Albert. I noticed how Rafa left off Jakeem Grant because after the show I'm going to go over to Davey and help him clear out his locker. Jakeem, bye Jakeem Grant. I think you're done now. I think you're now irrelevant. So yeah, you're going to have a really, really nice receiver / tight end core next year. Ray says, great signing. The draft will be offense and an edge on defense. Yeah, you definitely need edge rusher. There's no question about that. That is an area that the Dolphins need to address. So if you're just tuning in, Will Fuller is a Miami Dolphin, and it turns out the Dolphins have a plan. Oh, I like this. How about this onside radio poll? How do you feel about the Will Fuller signing for the Dolphins? Here are the 4 choices. Love it, like it, meh, or hate it. I'm voting love it. Boom, I just voted. So we have, and I'm going to retweet this as well so you can find it. The Onside Radio account tweeted this out. I'm retweeting this from my account. So if you follow me on Twitter or if you don't, I'm at Alex Donno. Donno spelled Donno. How do you feel about the Will Fuller signing for the Dolphins? The 4 choices are love it, like it, meh, or hate it. 33 votes cast so far. Love it is in the lead at 45.5%. Like it at 39.4%. Meh at 15.2%. And 0% have voted hate it so far. How could you even vote meh? I mean, what do you think they how dare you spend $10 million on a really good wide receiver? Like, I don't understand how you could say meh. I'm glad no one has voted hate it. And if anyone does vote hate it, you're either one of those online trolls that I've heard about that come from Russia. Listen, Donno, I had to go on the Twitter machine. You know, I have 47 account because I like to rig U.S. elections and I like to tamper with things. So I go on Twitter account with burner account and I vote hate it or I vote meh. Like, you have to be a bot, like a Russian bot, to vote hate it. Or maybe you're a New York Jets fan who's trying to sabotage our poll results. But I don't see how any self-respecting Dolphin fan could hate or say meh to this move. If you don't love it, maybe you like it. You know, Tito was telling me, our guy Big O from the Onside Zone, you know, he worries about Will Fuller's durability, which I think is a fair concern. I think that might be the one reason why some people like the move and don't love the move, because he hasn't gotten through a full season healthy 5 years so far in his career. So I could see that. Right, because you already have a guy in Devontae Parker who doesn't really make a habit out of staying healthy. Neither does Albert Wilson. Preston Williams, he doesn't either. So you have a number of players on. You know what? Here's a little mental leap I make, okay? When you talk about a receiving core full of players who struggled to get through 16 games, this might be more of a motivation to really take a long, hard look at Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts. Because, hey, I know people nitpick a lot on Devontae Smith for his slight frame, and some people say, hey, it's not fair to assume he's not going to get through a season healthy, just he's a little smaller. At this point, I don't even know if you take that risk. Like, if Jamar Chase has the build for NFL durability, where Devontae Smith has, you know, more of the slight Marvin Harrison type of build, where he's got to be really, really careful and a little bit lucky to get through full seasons healthy. So maybe the fact that you do have a receiving core that has a lot of talent and upside, but not a lot of guys that habitually make it through 16 games, maybe this gives you more reason to lean towards Jamar Chase, who probably has the tools to get through a full season, rather than a Devontae Smith who just doesn't. 844-416-8123. That's 844-416-8123. I can respect this. Robert sends in the group chat, do your due diligence on Robert Foster. I'm telling you, he looks good. He was especially good in Buffalo, right? I think that's where he had his most success, Foster. And he is a former Alabama Crimson Tide receiver. They're going to be surrounding Tua with teammates, right? If you can add Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith to Robert Foster, who I think there was 1 year overlap with him and Tua together at Alabama. So yeah, you know, I'll be a little bit more fair to Robert Foster. It's not a blockbuster move, but maybe there's more upside there than I give it credit for. 844-416-8123. Remember, later on this hour at about 4:30, we're going to talk with Ira Winderman from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. I do want to talk a little bit of Miami Heat when we come back. Hey, every Thursday, NBA fans can catch one of the best basketball shows in the country when Ethan Skolnick and Ira Winderman host Inside the Paint. Listen to two of the most knowledgeable and connected reporters in the business. Get year-round insight every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. with Inside the Paint on the home for hardcore basketball fans, OnsideRadio.com.
We'll be right back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can join us on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623. You can connect with us at OnsideRadio.com by sending us a text at 844-416-8123. Save it on your cell phone, 844-416-8123. No better place to send your comments, ask questions, win prizes. OnsideRadio.com, the only choice for the South Florida sports fan.
Hey Panthers fans, Dave Dwart here with some awesome news. Every Saturday, I'm going to bring you the latest on everything to do with the Florida Panthers with Chirping the Cats Radio. Saturday mornings from 10 to 11 a.m., we'll dive into the state of the team, recap games, and hear from past and present Panthers players, and plenty of other great hockey guests too. Got questions about the Panthers? Call or text the show and we'll break it down. Don't miss Chirping the Cats Radio, Saturday mornings from 10 to 11 a.m. only on OnsideRadio.com.
If you missed Onside Zone with Big O, you missed.
She's kind of young, so I don't know. She may not be into Van Halen much. Let's see. Hey, Ruthie, good afternoon. Are you a Van Halen fan?
You know, I just had to Google Van Halen. I'm not going to lie to you. I just literally have it on my computer right now.
The Onside Zone with Big O. Weekdays 11 to 1 p.m. Only on OnsideRadio.com.
He has an overbite that makes him look like a cartoon character, a slightly crooked eye, and an uncommonly wrinkly neck. In the right light, he can look a little like a garden gnome, and he'll wear a bow tie just because. Sure, you might call him a little quirky, but that's exactly what makes him so perfect. Tuna is a 3-year-old Chihuahua Dachshund mix with more than 700,000 followers on Instagram, and it all started because he was adopted. You can't buy a best friend like Tuna, but you can adopt one. Help us save them all at bestfriends.org.
Big O for M&S Air Conditioning. You know, air quality in your home and business is more important than ever. That's why you've got to call M&S Air Conditioning and let them install a high-efficiency polarized air filter in your AC unit. Folks, it attracts, captures, and destroys biological contaminants to improve your air quality. With stellar customer service, answering your call from 7:30 a.m. till 9 o'clock p.m. For more info on high-efficiency air filters and their preventative maintenance plans, visit M&S Air Conditioning at ac-florida.com.
ADHD. It's the child who can't pay attention or sit still in school, right? The answer may be yes. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, can be complicated and it can last a lifetime. Living with a condition can sometimes be a challenge. It may take years to accept a formal diagnosis, and it's not always easy to find the right treatment plan. Did you know that up to 75% of children and adolescents with ADHD have at least one additional mental health condition that also requires a comprehensive approach to treatment? ADHD guidelines were recently updated to reflect the need to screen for associated disorders. Be sure to talk with your child's doctor about proper screening and visit moretoadhd.com for additional information. That's moretoadhd.com. This message has been brought to you in partnership with ADA, ACO, and CHAD.
It's time to talk Miami Heat with NBA insider Ira Winderman. It's the Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat Report, exclusively at OnsideRadio.com. Let's go over the latest headlines locally with the Miami Heat and league-wide in the NBA with our very own Ira Winderman.
Yeah, we love talking Miami Heat. We usually do this on a Monday, Thursday this week, but this is even better because then we get the quick turnaround because we'll only have to wait 4 more days to talk to Ira. Ira Winderman joins us for the Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat Report. Good afternoon, Ira. How are you?
I'm good. The timing might be good for you, but it would have been a lot easier to come on the show after amid a winning streak after the victory Sunday in Orlando. Instead, we got downer time for the second time in the last 12 games. So you'll have to deal with it, Donno.
Well, and Ira, I thought you said it well and perfectly correctly in your takeaways piece in the Sun Sentinel that this, referring to last night, is what a 5th game in 7 nights looks like. And to be honest, obviously I'm always disappointed when the Heat don't win, especially when I have to stay up a little bit later to watch the end of the game, like was the case last night. But I didn't go to bed angry. I wasn't upset. They'd won 11 of 12 heading into last night. Nights like that are going to happen, and I'm happy that Jimmy Butler did play after being questionable throughout the day. And wow, that Ja Morant, pretty damn special, Ira. That was quite a cut he made to the basket there near the end to score the game winner.
Yeah, but you know what? Jimmy totally screwed up the angle. And what I love about Jimmy is after the game, really unprompted, when I just asked the question, what happened on the last play? And he basically said, that's on me. I request the top assignment. I say I'm going to take the toughest guy. We saw him do that to cool Terrence Ross on Sunday in Orlando, the way they cooled Colin Sexton against the Cavaliers. And Jimmy kind of busted that play. He picked him up too high in the court. He didn't leave himself an angle. Bam was occupied at the top of the key, couldn't get over in time. And what I really appreciate after that game, we only spoke to Bam and Jimmy. Usually the Heat will ask the beat writers, who do you want? And I knew that was pretty much a leadership game. So we just asked for Bam, we just asked for Jimmy, and they both fessed up to their mistakes. I mean, Bam said on the last play, 1.2 seconds left, Heat down two timeouts in the can. They used one of them. He threw the turnover on the play at the rim to Jimmy, and Bam said, I should have called another timeout. I like that. I like that there was no dodging the issue, because when Jimmy says he took the wrong angle, it tells you next time he'll take the right angle. When Bam says, I should have called the timeout, it tells you next time he'll know to call the timeout. And that's what Eric Spoelstra told us after the game. He said, look, you can learn and take things away from these games as long as you put the lessons going forward. I think they did. So tough loss. You'd like to get that. Almost everyone else in the East race in the Heat's portion of the bracket or of the standings lost yesterday. But you know what? You got Indy tomorrow, and you just move forward.
Well, and Ira, they're not going to wear those trophy gold jerseys against the Pacers, right? Because that would be way too confusing. Even if the Pacers were wearing white, I don't want to have to be in a situation where every time the Heat score, I'm thinking Indiana scored.
No, well, believe me, I had trouble the other day. It was funny because I was telling this story to some of the other hosts on the station. My wife and I were watching the Orlando game the other day. She didn't know which team was the Heat because, Orlando was in the home white. The Heat were in these gold uniforms that they just don't look like. Yeah. And I know the Heat try to talk their way out of it and saying, no, they're not the Pacers uniforms. If anything, they're closer to the color of gold of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And, Donno, I'll ask you this because you're a guy who will wear the occasional jersey. Certainly you wear the occasional soccer kit and all that, and I get it. But does there become a point of oversaturation where you don't know what the team is anymore?
Yes.
Where the Utah Jazz are running around in green uniforms and you turn on TV. And I understand you want to sell more product. And the more variety you have, the more product you can sell. But I think what these teams are losing is this, their identity. There are classic jerseys that most of the time when you watch your Miami Dolphins, they're in aqua and orange and white, and they keep it simple. When you go out of the box and you go beyond the regular color scheme, I think you lose a little bit of your identity.
No, 1,000%. Like sometimes people think that like soccer teams have too many jerseys. I mean, the European club is basically every year they do 3 kits where you have like your traditional colors for the home kit, usually a white for the road kit, and then, something kind of crazy for the third kit. But, I mean, 3 is 3, Ira. With these NBA teams, you're talking about having, like, 5 or 6 different jersey colors this season.
The Heat are operating 5 this season, I believe, and that's kind of low for them. They have the vice versa. They have the trophy gold. They have their blacks. They have their whites. They have their reds. That's almost a low number. There weren't military, for example, this year. There weren't, Christmas Day uniforms because the Heat, of course, didn't play on Christmas. Well, actually, they did play on Christmas Day.
They played the Pelicans.
And they're still wearing Christmas uniforms. You remember those? They were like the onesies. They were all the same color, and you couldn't figure what you were. Oh, and the worst, remember the sleeve jerseys?
Yes.
Yeah, so at least we've gotten away from that. Anyway, I don't want to belabor the thing, but I think there are almost too many. I'll be glad to see the Heat when I watch them on TV, when I watch them in person, to actually see them again look like the Heat.
Well, let's talk about the Trevor Ariza trade.
Sure.
Let's cover this angle first, and that was the subtraction of Myers-Leonard. I'll admit I was all for the idea of releasing him very quickly. I didn't even like the fact that he remained a member of the Heat as long as he did. But does the way that it ended up going down, Ira, does that validate the Heat's perspective when and obviously he said something horrific. But the fact that they were ultimately able to turn him around and aid in this Trevor Ariza deal, that does vindicate the Heat here, right?
The Myers-Leonard trade had nothing to do with the anti-Semitic slur that he mentioned. It had him leaving the team, which might have happened anyway, but this goes way back. This goes back to November when the Heat were offering contracts and looking at their salary structure and realized they had a lot of top-end contracts. The new deal they were going to get for Bam, even though it kicks in next year, becomes sort of a poison pill. The Jimmy Butler contract, Goran on the high end. They had a bunch of low contracts because they have a bunch of newcomers. They have a bunch of draft picks. Tyler Hero, KZ Okpala, so they were Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson. And they sort of needed mid-tier contracts, so if they got a player in that salary range, they could make the dollar-for-dollar trade that's necessary. That's among the reasons people were aghast. Why would you give Myers Leonard $19.5 million over 2 years? Well, one, the second year was a team option, which meant you could have traded him in the offseason also if you wanted to after the season. But the other part was just for matching salaries. It's a really weird world the NBA lives in, where they give you $10 million just so they can get rid of you. That's basically how the Myers-Leonard deal came down in November. It gave the Heat flexibility. So if a player in the Trevor Ariza salary range came up, they wouldn't have to give up a contributor like Andre Iguodala. They wouldn't have to give up a contributor like Kelly Olynyk, and they'd have this Myers-Leonard contract there. So you know what, Donno? If there was never the anti-Semitic slur, and Myers Leonard was simply the guy who only played 3 games all season and was out for the season with the shoulder surgery, they would have traded him anyway, because that's the way the NBA works with these kinds of deals, is you have to match salary. So, it's kind of weird. I mean, you could look at Myers Leonard's season this year, 3 games, the anti-Semitic slur, and call him the biggest loser, but he also pocketed $9.5 million for his Heat tenure. He won't play the rest of the season. That's basically over $3 million a game.
We're joined here by Ira Winderman from the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. So let's talk about the addition in the deal, and that is the acquisition of Trevor Ariza, who, obviously this may not be something that tips the scales to a championship, but I like the addition a lot, Ira. He can defend multiple positions. He can hit threes. How do you see him fitting in with this Heat roster?
At worst, a modern-day Keith Askins, a 3-and-D kind of player. But what I see is this, and I tweeted this out the other day. Let's say you're playing the Heat, and you're trying to set up to get a basket. Maybe Memphis had called timeout yesterday and needed a late basket. All of a sudden, there's a timeout, and Eric Spoelstra can sub in this lineup. You ready, Donno?
Mm-hmm.
He can sub in Bam Adebayo, Andre Iguodala, Avery Bradley, Jimmy Butler, and Trevor Ariza.
It's a lot of defense.
5 guys who have an argument to make an NBA all-defensive team. Each guy who can guard his own position and can switch on to other positions. That's what they've done. For a playoff game that's coming down to the last play and there's a timeout, they have basically an all-defensive team they can roll out there. They don't have to risk Goran Dragic's defense or Tyler Hero's defense or Duncan Robinson's defense. So to me, that makes it a no-brainer because there was so much dead weight on the end of this roster anyway that you could lose a player and give up a roster spot for a Trevor Ariza. My concern now, or I guess my question better than concern is there another move to sort of help fix the power rotation?
Yeah.
Because look at the oddity of last night. God bless Kelly Olynyk for what he's done in recent weeks during the Heat's winning streak and road winning streak. But Kelly Olynyk getting into foul trouble should not cripple your power rotation. But it did last night in Memphis. That tells me they still need one more move.
And what could that move be, Ira? And I know that this is, I would imagine this is a question you've probably answered on Ask Ira already today, but what do you think the next move might be?
Again, they're going to it's going to be liar's poker, and I'll tell you why. I don't see a way for the San Antonio Spurs to move in a trade LaMarcus Aldridge's contract. So instead, the NBA has set the buyout deadline, the day you must be waived by, in order to be signed by another team for the playoffs, to April 9th, which is exactly 2 weeks after the March 25th NBA trading deadline. So I think what all the teams that have those kind of guys and are trying to get an asset in a trade, it's going to be sort of liar's poker. Do you make a move now and give up an asset, or do you say, you know what, I can get that player not only for no one in exchange in 2 weeks on April 9th, I could also do it on my salary terms and not have to pick up his salary. So I think the guys out there like for example, like a LaMarcus Aldridge, maybe even a Larry Nance, or just guys like that teams are going young and moving off those players. I think they wait to the buyout market and see what's going on. It's interesting. I spoke to you early in the year, and I said the Heat were at a point when they were like 7 games under 500. Why would a free agent come here? Why would a buyout guy come to South Florida and they're not even in the playoffs? I think the Heat are really well situated right now that if you are that kind of buyout free agent, you look at the Heat in the standings and you go, you know what? This team can make the conference finals. This team can get home court in the first round. So I think it might be more likely the buyout market than necessarily the trade market.
It's amazing how much things can change in about a month. I mean,
it's
a remarkable the turnaround. Last thing, Ira, something I wanted to ask you, because I know you follow hockey in addition to following the NBA. There have been a lot of there's been a viral push among Heat fans for Jim VP, and he may be putting up MVP type of numbers. Sure. I don't really think he's going to win the award. So I wanted to ask you, between the two of these guys, who's more likely to win an MVP award in their respective sport this year, Jimmy Butler or Alexander Barkov on the Florida Panthers?
I'm glad you didn't say Ekblad and put me in a tougher spot. Okay, looking at Barkov, you know what? It's sort of the same answer for both of them. I think you have to be at the top of the standings. Yeah. I think invariably an MVP guy is going to be a guy who's top 2 in his conference either way. So I think if the Panthers keep this ridiculously good record and maybe can push past the Lightning and win their division, I think that would give Barkov the advantage. I think the fact when you're on an elite team and make them an elite team, I mean, God bless Jimmy Butler, but I'm not sure I see the Heat finishing higher than 4th place in the East. When you look at what Brooklyn has, and you look at what Philadelphia has, as long as they get Embiid back soon enough, and you look at how Milwaukee has righted itself. So I'm not sure a 4th-place team could or honestly should give you an MVP. It's not like baseball when Andre Dawson won it for the last-place Cubs simply because baseball is so statistically oriented. So I'd probably say advantage Panthers there. The shame is I'm not on the next segment to talk about the Rangers' 9-0 victory yesterday, but I guess that's for another day.
Well, you know what? It's funny because I like to dabble in some wagers, and I got a hot tip yesterday that hey, you should bet the Flyers on the money line, and then I checked the score. I think it was in the second period or whatever it was. It was 9-0 already. What is happening?
And that's with the Rangers losing their coach and coaching staff to COVID protocols and having to play that way, which might tell you something about hockey coach in the first place, but it reminds me when I was young and watching baseball games with my mom, and she always said the same thing every game. Why can't they save some of these runs for their next game?
Yeah.
So I'm sure the Rangers will probably get shut out on their next 3.
Probably so. Ira does a fantastic job. This is the Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat Report. You can follow this man on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. Check out his work in the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Ira Winderman, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, good. I can take off my gold jersey now. Thank you, Donna.
Awesome. Ira does such a good job. And yeah, listen, I want to talk a little bit more about the question that I brought up to him there about MVPs on the other side. I'm pumped for some more Panthers hockey tonight, my friends. And Alexander Barkov, I am so bullish on the season his team is having and what he can provide for the rest of the year. So keep it locked. I'm with you guys till 6 o'clock here tonight before we hand it off to Michael Christian on game night, 6 to 7 p.m. every day. Remember, later on at 5:20, we're going to talk some Dolphins and a little Deshaun Watson with Juan Cardona. Hey, Sundays at 9 a.m., Juan Cardona dominates the airwaves with Juan on Juan. From sneakers to video games to your favorite South Florida team, tune in every Sunday to Juan on Juan exclusively on the home for sports talk in South Florida, OnSideRadio.com.
This has been the Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat Report with Ira Winderman. Visit Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines at 15601 Pines Boulevard. Come experience the oasis that customers deserve and the dealership that earned Dealer Rater's 2020 Consumer Satisfaction Award at Acura of Pembroke Pines. This is how we do it. You can connect with us at OnSideRadio.com by sending us a text at 844-416-8123. Save it on your cell phone, 844-416-8123. No better place to send your comments, ask questions, win prizes. OnSideRadio.com, the only choice for the South Florida sports fan.
There are those who dedicate themselves to a sense of honor, to a life of courage, and a commitment to something greater than themselves. They have always defended this nation and each other. They still do. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Inter Miami CF, your official furniture and mattress store, is here. City Furniture is your #1 home source for the trends you want at the prices you'll love, including exclusive City Furniture collections, the widest selection of styles, affordable home accents, mattresses starting at just $99 and more. Create the home of your dreams fast with next-day delivery, plus get 60 months special financing with no down payment. Because City Furniture is here to make it easy so everyone can live life like this, visit cityfurniture.com. Hey everybody, it's Good Greek Moving and Storage, and for over 2 decades, they've been entrusted to handle all of your moving and storage needs. And now, Good Greek is the official mover of Inter Miami CF. And if Inter Miami trusts the Good Greek, you should too. For the best move ever, whether it's across town or across the country, go to GreekMoving.com. That's GreekMoving.com for Good Greek Moving and Storage, the official movers of your Inter Miami CF.
Riddle me this. With all this sizzling meat and crunchy veggies nestled between toasty flatbread, who should get credit for Papa John's new papadilla? The person who invented pizza or the person who invented folding? Well, whoever it is, a tip of the tongue hat to you, sir or madam. Get a new papadilla, 4 flavors, just $6 each. Better ingredients, better pizza, better than a sandwich. Papa John's.
My daughter Brinley is here at St. Jude. Coming here was literally life or death, and it was so scary. But St. Jude is fighting for one goal, like this one mission, life. And that gave us hope. We haven't received a single bill from St. Jude, so I really can just focus on what's best for Brinley.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Keeping you informed in the world of sports. With an OnsideRadio.com sports update.
The Miami Dolphins continue their offseason and have found their starting center for this upcoming season after signing former Raven Matt Skura to a 1-year deal. The Fins made a bigger splash in free agency later in the day, agreeing to a 1-year deal with wide receiver Will Fuller worth $10 million. The Miami Heat had their win streak snapped last night after falling to the Memphis Grizzlies 89-85. The Heat are still the 4th seed in the East and return to action tomorrow night at 8 against the Indiana Pacers to kick off a 4-game homestand. The Florida Panthers are back on the ice tonight to take on the Nashville Predators. The Cats are entering tonight's matchup on a 4-game win streak and are right behind Tampa Bay for the Central Division lead. Puck drops at 7 p.m. For the Onside Sports Update, I'm Alex Aguirre, and coming up next is more of Man of the Match with Alex Donno, and Game Night with Michael Christian is right after at 6 p.m. You are listening to the only locally owned sports station in South Florida, OnsideRadio.com.
Onside Radio, the only choice for the South Florida sports fan. Welcome back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can reach out anytime on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
Dolphins might not be done for today. Some buzz. Pro Football Network was reporting something. Also, our guy Ray puts it in the chat. Chris Carson, the running back, former Seattle Seahawk, is close to a deal with the Dolphins. Let me pull up what I was reading about that from Pro Football Network. We are hearing from sources that former Seattle running back Chris Carson and the Miami Dolphins are close to a deal. Once again, do not count out Chris Greer. Now, one of the comments to the tweet said, if it means no Najee or Javonte, I'm out. No, I think I think the Dolphins could still end up drafting a running back pretty high. I mean, this is an active day, my friends, an active day for our Miami Dolphins. I realized something, that I have to amend a thought on Chris Fuller. Tell me if this is better or worse. Like I mentioned, he's never gotten through a season healthy. That's not really the case. The reason why he only played 11 games last year was he missed the last 5 games due to a PED suspension, and he still has to serve one more PED suspension game, so he won't be able to play the first game for the Dolphins. So, hey, he wasn't injured last year. PED user allegedly, but hey, this is a guy who's willing to take anything to win. Cobra Kai style, baby. No mercy. No, but I mean, listen, in all seriousness, cut it out with the PED nonsense, because I'll have to look up if he claims he took it by accident, because that seems to be what a lot of players claim. But cut that crap out, because we don't need you getting suspended and hurting the team. So make sure you clean that aspect up. But still, man, I mean, he didn't get hurt last year, so I will take that as a positive, that Will Fuller, technically, even though he missed 5 games last season, did not miss 5 games due to injury. He missed 5 games due to a PED suspension. And Chris Carson, Seattle Seahawks running back, could be close to a deal with the Miami Dolphins as well. Here's what Josh Alper of Pro Football Talk had to say about the Will Fuller deal. Will Fuller has found a new team. According to multiple reports, Fuller has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Dolphins. He will serve the remaining game of his 6-game suspension for PEDs to kick off the season. Once that's out of the way, he'll try to produce the same level he did before the ban was handed down. Yeah, he was awesome last year before the suspension. 53 catches for 879 yards, 8 touchdowns in 11 games to set career highs in all those categories. It was also the first time that Fuller did not miss a game due to injury, and a repeat on that front will be a plus to his chances of landing a longer deal in his next visit to free agency. So, yeah, again, this is a 1-year deal. So, if he doesn't live up to it, you cut ties, go your separate ways. If he does live up to his potential, then the Dolphins are going to have a decision to make a year from now, whether you re-sign him or if he even wants to re-sign here. I would imagine he probably would, assuming he has a good season here. So this is going to be interesting. Wow. Florida Panthers are back in action tonight in Nashville to take on the Predators. I pinch myself for the start of the season that the Panthers are having, and they've only played 28 games, 28 out of 56. So they're halfway through this abbreviated season. That's one of the reasons why I get annoyed when I see some people out there like, oh, it's still early. We've been fooled by good starts before. Can they sustain it? They're literally halfway through the season, and they have the most points in the entire National Hockey League. So you can start believing. I give you permission. If you've been a long-time South Florida sports fan and you've dabbled in hockey and the Panthers get hyped up every year and you've been burned before, I get your reluctance to embrace the team when they burned you before. But don't tell me about early starts and can they sustain it. They're literally halfway through the season, and nobody in the National Hockey League has more points than the Panthers do right now. So I give you permission to get a little bit excited. In fact, before the season began, my number one goal, really my only goal, was just get into the playoffs. I don't care if you sneak in. I don't care if you're the final seed. Just get into the playoffs. But you're halfway through the year, and you're tied atop your division, and the division is tough, man. Tampa, no joke, defending Stanley Cup champions. We played 3 games already this season, won 2 of them against Tampa, and they all felt like playoff games. It was really cool. Tampa has the talent. They're stacked. Carolina has our number. We've struggled against Carolina this year. So you've got a really, really tough division when you're dealing with the likes of the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Carolina Hurricanes. But with the start that the Panthers are off to here and now halfway through the season, I am no longer saying my goal is to make the playoffs. My goal is to now actually try and win the Central Division. I think the Panthers are good enough that even if they struggle head-to-head against Carolina, it doesn't mean the Panthers can do better outside of the head-to-heads and still finish atop the division. 19-5-4 on the year, tied for most points in the NHL, and a lot of the other, I think they're tied with 4 teams with 42 points, and at least 2 of those other teams that have 42 points have played more games than the Panthers have, because the Panthers have had a couple of games that were postponed due to COVID, so they've got the games in hand, right? We always talk about games in hand with the Panthers. Now you've got games in hand and your first place despite having the games in hand, which is cool. The one stat that's a double-edged sword, because coming from behind, it shows character, but coming from behind is also dangerous, right? Because I don't know if coming from behind every game is statistically sustainable because you do have to be a bit of a front runner sometimes. The Panthers lead the league in wins when falling into a 1-0 deficit, going 12-4-3 when giving up the first goal. That's very rare, right? You know, when I used to be on the Florida Panthers broadcast team for 6 or 7 seasons, you know, when you're in the arena, they give you a gigantic packet of stats and pregame notes. And one of the most helpful pages in the big stat sheet is you look at the Florida Panthers and you look at the other team that they're playing against, and they have the record when giving up the opening goal or the record when scoring first. And typically the team that scores first is usually like 8 games, you know, over 500 when scoring first. The Panthers being 12-4-3 when giving up the first goal, that is statistically very rare. So I do think they need to be more of a front runner this year. You know, the question that I asked to Ira Winderman is, and yeah, you've got a viral Jim VP campaign going on Twitter. Heat fans want Jimmy Butler to be considered for MVP of the NBA this year. We need to start like a Barkey VP. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a nice ring to it, but if I ask you and you're answering me realistically, who has a better chance of winning MVP in their respective league sport this year? Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat or Alexander Barkov of the Florida Panthers? It's looking Barkey right now has the better shot. 34 points this year with 12 goals. You know, he is one of the best two-way centermen in the NHL, the defense and the offense. He's so sound fundamentally, and he's putting up the numbers. Like, I want to see him get maybe a little bit more potent in the second half of the year with the goal scoring, because Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl with Edmonton, these guys score like 10 goals a game. It's ridiculous the type of numbers that they're putting up. So maybe Barkov needs to step up the goal-scoring output a little bit to truly get considered for MVP. But, you know, the good point that Ira Winderman brought up is that, you know, typically most valuable player isn't usually given out to, you know, the guy who's needed the most by his team. It's usually given out to the best player on the best team. And if the Panthers can actually finish first place, I talked about wanting to see them not only make the playoffs but actually win their division. If the Panthers can win a very competitive Central Division and Alexander Barkov is the best player on the team in the process, he could get real legitimate consideration for MVP this year, where the Miami Heat are probably going to finish at about a 4 seed or a 5 seed. And remember, Jimmy didn't make the All-Star game this year because he had missed, I think, 12 games you know, prior to the All-Star selection, so that hurt him in the All-Star. It's kind of hard to imagine a guy missing the All-Star game but getting named MVP. I think between the two of those, and I put out a Twitter poll, you can vote on it at Alex Donno on Twitter, you know, who's more likely to win MVP in their sport this year, Jimmy Butler or Sasha Barkov, and Barkov is leading that poll, and I think rightfully so. Like, I think he's got a legitimate shot, whereas Jimmy Butler only has a prayer of a shot to win league MVP this year. We will wrap up the 4 o'clock hour when we come back. Remember, we take you up until 5 o'clock, which is I love this. My interview with Ira is already posted. Nice job, Alex Aguirre has already put that interview up. 844-416-8123 is the text line number. Remember, you can watch and chat with us on YouTube. Want to talk a little bit more Miami Dolphins when we return here. You're listening to Onside Radio. Hey, weeknights 6 to 7, catch Game Night with Michael Christian. Listen to the show that provides the smorgasbord that gamers love and sports fans desire. From breaking sports news to the latest in gaming culture, catch Game Night with Michael Christian 6 to 7 p.m. exclusively at OnsideRadio.com.
We'll be right back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can join us on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
Join the Inter Miami family in 2021 by becoming a 2021 season ticket member. Enjoy enhanced access benefits and pricing not available to general fans. Visit intermiamicf.com/tickets for more information.
If you missed 4th and 20 with Toast and Marsh, you missed.
And the top trait they're looking for in a partner is someone that can cook better than them.
Wow.
Yeah. How are you at cooking?
I'm okay. I cook all my stuff.
What's your best dish? If I had to say, Marsh, this you're gonna eat in tonight with a girl. All right.
Well, if
And
I'm
you need to
cooking for a
create-
girl,
Yeah, you
then
gotta
I'm
create
not
the meal.
cooking.
4th and 20 with Toast and Marsh, weekday mornings from 8 to 10.
Hey Panthers fans, Dave Dwart here with some awesome news. Every Saturday, I'm going to bring you the latest on everything to do with the Florida Panthers with Chirping the Cats Radio. Saturday mornings from 10 to 11 a.m., we'll dive into the state of the team, recap games, and hear from past and present Panthers players, and plenty of other great hockey guests too. Got questions about the Panthers? Call or text the show and we'll break it down. Don't miss Chirping the Cats Radio, Saturday mornings from 10 to 11 a.m. only on OnsideRadio.com.
You're listening to OnsideRadio.com. Catch up anytime by downloading the MyTuner Radio app. OnsideRadio.com, South Florida's true hometown station.
Inter Miami CF, your official furniture and mattress store, is here. City Furniture is your #1 home source for the trends you want at the prices you'll love, including exclusive City Furniture collections, the widest selection of styles, affordable home accents, mattresses starting at just $99 and more. Create the home of your dreams fast with next-day delivery, plus get 60 months special financing with no down payment. Because City Furniture is here to make it easy so everyone can live life like this, visit cityfurniture.com.
You're listening to the station with more live and local sports talk than anyone else in South Florida. OnsideRadio.com. Broadcasting from South Florida to the world.
Can I get a captain?
Captain and what?
Captain and Ginger.
I can't hear you.
Captain and Ginger.
He was a captain and ginger, captain and ginger. He was a captain and ginger.
Captain Morgan, official partner of Major League Soccer.
Welcome back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can reach out anytime on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
I really hope that this Chris Carson report is true and that he's going to be the next Miami Dolphin. Man, it's amazing the difference that about 24 hours make. I mean, you've already gotten Malcolm Brown at running back, who had a pretty superb 4 yards per carry average coming in. You had Will Fuller today at wide receiver, which I think is a great move. I actually feel better about him now that I remember he's on steroids and not injured last year. I mean, this is great. And I asked the question because I totally forgot. Because it always happens this way. You guys know that for many years I've covered mixed martial arts, and a lot of guys like in the UFC over the years have gotten popped for PEDs, and of course it happens in the NFL, Major League Baseball, and not as much in basketball, but a lot in football and a lot in baseball. And 99% of the time that somebody gets popped, the excuse is almost always, I took a supplement and I didn't realize it was tainted. I didn't do it on purpose. Rarely does anyone ever admit, yeah, you know what? I tried to break the rules. I thought I wouldn't get caught if I took some testosterone. Somebody was injecting me and, oh, you got me. Oops, sorry. I tried to break the rules and I got caught. No, the excuse is always whenever these guys get caught, like you remember the one that a couple of different, several different athletes have used and apparently like there is history to this. Like they don't make these excuses up out of the blue, but sometimes if you eat beef in Mexico, it's tainted, and like you eat a steak, south of the border, and oh my God, I popped positive for steroid. It can happen. That's why it's such a common excuse. John Bones Jones, once blamed a positive drug test in the UFC on a dick pill, like on a sexual supplement that he was, which is like, well, why would he lie about that? Because he's bringing up the fact that he needed enhancements in the bedroom. So it sounds like a great excuse because it's a little bit self-deprecating. Same thing happened with Anderson Silva once. He claimed that he was on knockoff Viagra from Thailand, and it made him pop positive for a PED. So that's always the go-to. But the thing about it is, usually when you hear excuses like that, the BS meter starts ringing. But it can happen, and it's common enough because the supplement industry is a freak show the supplement industry is so shady. Like, you might be taking something, and this is legit. Like, it can be an excuse, but it also can be real. Like, a lot of the stuff you buy at GNC and Vitamin Shop or online are actually supplements that are made in the same laboratories that also make steroids for the black market. And so they're not, like, intending to put steroids in your protein powder. But, you know, these labs can use a lot of, like, the same machinery that produce the black market steroids that are also producing the quote-unquote legitimate supplements. And so cross-contaminations happen all the time. So it's actually a real thing. Like, there have been studies written on it, because a few years ago, whenever I heard the tainted supplement excuse, I always said this is so ridiculous. Then I read into the matter, and it can actually happen. I think that's what makes it such a popular excuse for athletes. Rafa in Miami wrote in with Will Fuller. He said it was a medication from his doctor that he was unaware it was banned. That's good enough for me, he writes. and that can also happen because the NFL has a very long list of banned substances. Not all of them you would think about, hey, this is a steroid. Like, it could be, you know, all sorts of different medications, and maybe your doctor doesn't realize that this was on the banned list. So as far as I'm concerned, Will Fuller, 100% innocent. Congratulations. You're now a Miami Dolphin. I wonder if Chris Carson is next on that list. I hope so. I mean, Chris Carson, a tackle-breaking running back. It is fun to watch that dude play. I mean, last year in 12 games, 4.8 yards per carry a season ago, 5 touchdowns scored. He's scored 21 touchdowns in the last 3 years. He came into the league in 2017, didn't score any touchdowns his rookie year. He has scored 21 touchdowns in the last 3 seasons. All of a sudden, we go from complaining about Tua not having enough weapons, and in one day, and again, the Carson thing is a rumor. I'm not yet to see any, like, super credible reports, but if they can add Chris Carson on the same day that they add Will Fuller, and we still have a draft coming up with 2 first-round picks, 17-game season, we might win 17 regular season games. This is going to be fantastic. 844-416-8123. That's 844-416-8123. Get the brutal honesty every day from noon to 3 p.m. with the Big O in the Onside Zone on your home for sports talk in South Florida, OnsideRadio.com.
We'll be right back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can join us on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
Hey everybody, it's Good Greek Moving and Storage, and for over 2 decades, they've been entrusted to handle all of your moving and storage needs. And now, Good Greek is the official mover of Inter Miami CF. And if Inter Miami trusts the Good Greek, you should too. For the best move ever, whether it's across town or across the country, go to GreekMoving.com. That's GreekMoving.com for Good Greek Moving and Storage, the official movers of your Inter Miami CF.
Miami Dolphins fans can always count on the best coverage at OnsideRadio.com. Every week, keep up with your favorite team as Dolphins writer Omar Kelly joins us with exclusive reports. And when news breaks, catch the EJDConstruction.com Miami Dolphins report on the home for Dolphins fans everywhere, OnsideRadio.com. Welcome back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno.
It's all yours. Just keep it right here.
You can reach out anytime on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
Yeah, 5 o'clock hour of Man of the Match with Alex Donno. I'm Alex Donno, and I'm with you guys live on OnsideRadio.com. You can listen there right on the website. I have to say this because some of you, like somebody reached out to me today on Twitter, and I always love when, you know, we find new listeners who are asking us questions about all the different ways to hear the show, because a listener reached out to me that said that he had recently discovered Orlando Alzagari and me, and I hope he discovers all the other great shows, because Toast and Marsh kick ass in the morning. Kai Chen Chisholm does a great job from 10 to noon. You know, O from noon to 3, and then after me, you have Michael Christian from 6 to 7, which that's the most unique show in this market. And I mean that as the utmost compliment, because what Michael Christian does from 6 to 7 every night is the future of sports talk radio and podcasting, because the dinosaurs are dying out, right? I mean, people like me, I'm in my 30s. Even like I give Big O a lot of credit because he's in his 50s, but he does the show of a much younger man, right? I mean, like you would never you hear the type of show that he does, the way he mixes up the topics and the perspectives he brings. Like you would think he's doing the show of somebody in his 30s or early 40s, but like people like O and me. We're kind of hybrids, right? Like, I grew up on classic sports talk radio, but, I also I keep up with things that like the Hank Goldbergs of the world would have never talked about back in the day. But then I listened to Michael Christian from 6 to 7, and he's doing the type of show that everyone is going to be doing within a decade from now, and he's one of the first to do it. And so it's really cool. Like you can hear from 6 to 7 every evening the future of sports broadcasting, because the way that dude is able to, mix in the quote-unquote conventional stuff, like recapping a Heat game and recapping a free agent signing and all that, but then also mix in esports, which I know so little about, right? The way that he mixes in, things that, people in their 30s and 40s don't understand, but people in their teens and 20s, it's just life for them. He's doing the type of show in 2021 that everyone's going to be doing in 2030. So we're really ahead of the curve on that, thanks to Michael Christian. But yeah, no, a listener reached out to me today because he said he had recently discovered Orlando and me on the podcast, The Replays. He didn't know how to listen to us live. And so, yeah, I was happy to let him know, hey, onsideradio.com, and you can watch us live through YouTube. So I hope everybody knows that. I hope that you know that if you missed the live shows, you can catch up on the replays on every podcast channel, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Pods. Just search Onside Radio or search Alex Donno, and you can find all the podcast replays of our shows, because I understand that while some of you are able to listen to hours at a time, others are, on the go, you're working, you're doing different things, and you want to be able to listen to the show on your own time, listen on demand. And so we have all the replays available as well. But I really appreciate the people who do the live shows, because it's cool to be able to interact. Kenneth Cleveland is on board now. He says, good afternoon, Donno. Kenneth Cleveland is live from the Boom Boom Room. I am sending the limo for you after your air shift. We have a board meeting for new talent for the VIP. Oh, I can't wait to check out that new talent. And Kenneth gave us the exciting news this week that he is, for the first time ever, he is waiving the requirement to watch Smokey and the Bandit to allow membership to Tito Benach. Because Tito, for months, he's been denied membership to the Boom Boom Room because he just does such a crappy job of watching great movies. Now, Tito works with us from, he works the entire Onside Zone, and then he works my show from 3 to 4 p.m., and I love Tito. I've known Tito for many years. But, Tito, I don't think he's seen a film made before the year 2000. It's kind of pathetic. But then I get to work from 4 to 6 with my guy Alex Aguirre, who appreciates classic movies. Like, have you seen Citizen Kane? Like, how deep into the archives do you go?
I've seen Citizen Kane once, and that was it. I was like, I'm never gonna watch this again because it's
I don't know. It doesn't really translate to modern sensibilities.
No, you just gotta watch it for what it is, and then with that mindset that okay, people said that this is the greatest movie ever made. So if you go in with that type of mindset, like expecting like your mind to be blown, you already lost the battle. You just gotta I don't know how to explain it. Just be open about it. Yeah, just take it for what it is.
I think the reason why Citizen Kane is considered the best movie ever, it's more about like the barriers that it broke, because they introduced new camera techniques that had never been used before. The style of storytelling had never been, I think, because the movie came out in the 40s, like it's really an old ass movie, and they did a lot of stuff in Citizen Kane that just it became common practice for movie making after, but it was not common practice before. And so I think you have to respect its place in history. I
Absolutely.
mean, that's like an 80-year-old movie.
Space Odyssey, 2000. Like, what's it called? 2001 Space Odyssey.
I love that movie.
It's another classic, yeah.
2001: A Space Odyssey. people either love it or
The
hate
intro,
it.
the intro, the music is what gets me.
I mean, nobody speaks for like 40 minutes into that movie, right?
I think like the first humans, I guess you see in the movie, it's like 30, 40 minutes into it, and the first dialogue happens.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I love the first time that I saw 2001, like my reaction was, that was so awesome, but I'm not sure if I hated that or loved that. Like, I wasn't really sure. It's the type of movie where you have to, maybe people way smarter than me can understand it first viewing.
I can't give answers to that movie.
I had to go on to like websites devoted to explaining it, and then once you see it explained, you're like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. Like the symbolism, because every time the monolith shows up, it's like a transition in a new benchmark of human evolution, and it tells you basically which is some Illuminati type of stuff, because a lot of people believe that this is really happening. I cannot divulge whether or not I'm one of those people, because we have a certain code to live by. Those of us who are in the Illuminati, we cannot disclose that we are in it. It's sworn to secrecy, okay? But a lot of people think that we really are being guided by an alien civilization, that the reason why the human race is evolving, we are evolving in the image of aliens who are kind of control. They helped us build the pyramids. They gave us tools. They gave us fire. All these things, and that's what the monolith in 2001. Every time the monolith shows up, it represents a big benchmark in the history of human civilization, and it goes, into the future, all the way into the year 2001, into the very distant future that movie goes into. Rafa in Miami writes, most influential movie. I'm not sure. I think he's talking about Citizen Kane, maybe not 2001, but they're both up there. Like 2001 is probably the most influential science fiction movie, and that came out in '67, I think. And yeah, Citizen Kane came out in the '40s, and it reinvented filmmaking, man. So
how about that guest that we had a couple weeks back with the classic sports movies? Now,
yes,
I forgot. I feel bad for the gentleman who came on the show, but now speaking of like classic movie picks, that's a segment that you guys want to listen to for sports classics.
And actually, you know what? He was wanting to come on again, so I do want to bring him on again at some point.
That'd be great.
He is an expert in the history of cinema.
Yeah, and the one movie that really stood out to me that I want to watch is the one with Paul Newman, that he plays a boxer, not Rocky Marciano, another Rocky, and it seems really interesting, and so I would love to have him back on.
Yeah, actually, you know what? It's funny. I think I was supposed to have him on today.
Wait, for real?
Yeah. Hold on. Because he wanted see if I can move this back a day, because I was supposed to arrange something. Hold on. Yeah, no, because I wanted, it was Ron McCloskey.
Yes.
Ron McCloskey, yeah. So, yeah, we want to – I think he might be coming on tomorrow. So I'm going to see if we could – yeah.
I think he came on a Friday last time, so
yeah.
It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So hopefully we'll get that going. We'll get that going tomorrow.
Yeah,
we can get
movie
more classic
picks,
movie
man.
recommended. I'm glad you brought that up, because it reminded me, like, oh, no, I think we were going to do something today, but I needed to, like, arrange something for because he wanted to play the game show again.
Oh, okay, great.
And, like, I can't bring him on in, like, 10 minutes because I don't have it arranged, so I'm seeing if we can move that back a day. Oh, man. 844-416-8123 is how you reach us on the text line. That's 844-416-8123. So, in case you've been living under a rock, there's a lot more going on with this Deshaun Watson situation. So there are more lawsuits coming. That attorney, Tony Busby, wrote on his Instagram yesterday, third lawsuit of now 6 to be filed against Deshaun Watson alleging assault. This is one of the most egregious to date. Again, I won't share details here, but we have open courts in our Texas Constitution, meaning all lawsuits are public record. Our staff has received numerous calls. We screen each one, and I personally talk and screen every individual whose behalf we file. I've been doing this for a long time. I don't need fame. And to be quite honest, and I say this as modestly as I can, if I never made another penny, I would be quite okay. Point is, I'm not pursuing these cases for the money, and every woman who has filed thus far has only pled the minimum amount to invoke the court's jurisdiction, which is $500. This isn't about the money. And to be clear, I've had many high-profile cases in my life, he says. I represented a sitting governor when he faced life in prison. I've represented widows, orphans, amputees, and those horribly burned or injured. As lead, I've handled many mass torts and class actions recovering hundreds of millions of dollars. I've tried and won some of the largest cases in Texas history, but I will say I've never faced the nastiness and vitriol that I've experienced in this case. People are crazy, he says, threatening my kids, people I know, threatening my fiance, telling me they will kill me or they hope I die, all because of football. Get a grip, he says. Yet, we won't be deterred or intimidated by keyboard warriors. As a recon Marine, I've seen danger, he said. I'm not at all concerned by dumb shits with a keyboard. Ha ha. I'll continue to proudly represent these who are written off and marginalized in our society. These cases are exactly why many of us become lawyers. Now, you know my feeling on this lawyer. I think this guy, Busby, he comes off like a sideshow. He's a real-life Saul Goodman. It's off-putting. Now, that's not a commentary on the accusations. I want to make that very clear. Separate those two issues. I have no way of knowing whether or not these accusations are true or not. I can tell you that for the sake of these women, if they really were victimized the way that's described in these lawsuits, I wish they had found a more professional character to file these cases with than a guy who's trying to make this all about himself. Because Tony Busby, he's making himself the headline here. I mean, this was, the second or third Instagram post he's made, and the first one, he was, like, telling his entire life story, and it's like, bro, is this about you or about the people who you say were victimized here? So the whole thing about this lawyer makes it stink a little bit, but my overall take is, and, you know, a couple of texters had pointed out, and this is true, these are not criminal complaints, these are civil complaints. So it's not as though Deshaun Watson is being, at least not at this time, investigated by police. These are civil lawsuits that have been filed. But I can't just dismiss it sight unseen, okay? Like, I have to be very fair here. And it was easier for me to brush this aside yesterday when there was one lawsuit and one complaint and one accusation, because Deshaun Watson, now all of a sudden these complaints are coming out of the woodwork. Prior to yesterday, he seemed like a model citizen, right? I mean, prior to yesterday, there were really no allegations of wrongdoing. There was no checkered past with this guy. He seemed to be someone, you know, living a pretty low-key, quiet, unassuming life, you know, aside from the fact that he's very famous for playing football. But you get what I mean. Like, he didn't seem like a troublemaker in any way, shape, or form. So when the first accusation comes in and you have a lawyer who's a bit of an attention seeker, it was very easy for me yesterday to kind of brush this aside and say, this whole thing stinks a little bit. But then you start to hear about 3 lawsuits filed, 3 more being filed, 6 more on top of that, allegations that are being vetted right now. You start to see a pattern develop, and you start to see an avalanche forming where I have to stand back and say, I don't know. I can't tell you with any certainty Deshaun Watson is innocent or he's clean. I also can't tell you with any certainty that he's guilty of any of these accusations, because I believe in innocence before guilt is proven. I strongly believe that. I'm not a cancel culture type of guy. I'm not someone who jumps to conclusions. But once you start to see this many allegations pile in, I need to step back and see how this plays out. I asked Kyle Krabs of Dolphins Wire about it, his opinion on whether teams that are interested in Deshaun Watson now have to hit the pause button, right? Because if you were thinking of calling up the Texans with an amazing trade package tomorrow, you've got to be a little hesitant on that. You want to see this play out first. And he said, absolutely, you have to put it on the back burner, right? I mean, every team has their own head of security. Every team has their own private detective they're all doing digging right now. They're all trying to find out whatever they can about Deshaun Watson's, you know, his activities in the massage room, because this is where all these allegations seem to be coming from. So every team is now doing their due diligence, and they're talking to lawyers. Deshaun has his own lawyer who's also a celebrity lawyer, Rusty Hardin. That's the guy who defended Roger Clemens. He's been a very high. So you have two high-profile lawyers in play here. The accuser and the defense lawyer. So this is something where if you're a team interested, whether the Dolphins are or aren't, the Carolina Panthers I think are very interested in Deshaun Watson, or were the New York Jets. You have to kind of put this on the back burner now and say, we can't really commit our interest in Deshaun Watson because we don't want to be the team that trades for him, and then 2 days later you realize you have an absolute firestorm with these allegations on your hands. So that's where we're at, and we'll get more on that with our pal Juan Cardona from Juan on Juan here on Onside Radio. He's going to join us next to talk a little Miami Dolphins. Hey, Florida Panthers fans have a place to call home every Saturday morning as Cats insider David Dwork will host Tripping the Cats Radio every Saturday 10 a.m. Onside Radio is committed to all sports, and Panthers fans can now connect every Saturday 10 to 11 with Dwork on your home for Florida Panthers fans. Worldwide, we are OnsideRadio.com.
We'll be right back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can join us on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
Inter Miami CF, your official furniture and mattress store, is here. City Furniture is your #1 home source for the trends you want at the prices you'll love, including exclusive City Furniture collections, the widest selection of styles, affordable home accents, mattresses starting at just $99 and more. Create the home of your dreams fast with next-day delivery, plus get 60 months special financing with no down payment. Because City Furniture is here to make it easy so everyone can live life like this, visit cityfurniture.com.
I'm Ryan Seacrest. First responders are people who stand for a greater purpose. They will be there for you when nobody else is, to help you, your family, your community. This is their selfless promise. This is their sworn duty, to protect, to serve, to help. They put themselves in harm's way for us. They come to the rescue at times when we need them most. First responders are making enormous personal sacrifices to keep showing up for us and fighting the good fight. Nearly 70% of all firefighters are volunteers. That means when they get injured or quarantined, they may not have a way to pay their rent or keep their family safe and fed. No matter who you are or where you live, when you call 911 and ask for help, first responders show up. Now, let's show up for the people who show up for us every day and every night.
Go to firstrcf.org and make a difference today.
You're listening to the station with more live and local sports talk than anyone else in South Florida. OnsideRadio.com. Broadcasting from South Florida to the world. You're listening to OnsideRadio.com. Catch up anytime by downloading the MyTuner Radio app. OnsideRadio.com. South Florida's true hometown station. Welcome back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. Check this out. You can reach out anytime on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
By the way, bit of a bummer because we saw a tweet earlier from Pro Football Network saying that former Seattle running back Chris Carson and the Dolphins are close to a deal. Joe Fan, who covers the Seattle, that's his actual name, Joe Fan, F-A-N-N, who covers the Seahawks for NBC Sports, has tweeted out a follow-up. He says, been told the Chris Carson to Miami rumor isn't accurate. His future is still very much undecided. But that's something we can get into with a number of other things with our next guest, who you know him, you love him. He hosts Juan on Juan here on Onside Radio. Juan Cardona is with us. So, Juan, first of all, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good, bro. Good. Thank you for having me.
Yo, so before we get to the Chris Carson rumors, let me talk about something that did go down today. And that's Will Fuller, and I think it was so cool.
Let me put on my tinfoil hat real quick.
Oh, hold on. Okay, the tinfoil hat is on. What do you got for me? Flat Earth? Like, what's happening?
I mean, listen, the tea leaves read what the tea leaves read, right? I mean, I could sit here and say I've been talking about this since January, but The Dolphins are spending. They're being super calculated with their money. They just got a certain somebody's favorite weapon from last season. I mean, yeah, you tell me, Donno, what's the most plausible thing here that's going on?
Well, I don't know, and maybe I'm being a prisoner of the moment, but with these allegations, like, Juan, I want your take on what's going on with Deshaun Watson, because, like, yesterday when it was one accusation, it was pretty easy for me to kind of brush it aside, but we're up to, like, 6 accusations that we know about, and there may be more coming. So what do you think happens here? Like, do you think the teams that are interested in Deshaun Watson have to, at least for right now, hit the pause button and see the way that this plays out?
So, first of all, let's just be very, very careful with, making sure that, the allegations, we want to respect the people who are, going forward and, having the courage to say what happened, if it did happen or if it didn't happen, whatever it may be. It just, again, being as respectful as I can be, I don't believe in coincidences. The timing of it all is very fishy to me. The lawyer being used has questionable connections to the old owner, Bob McNair, which is Cal McNair's son. So it's just all kind of fishy, for lack of a better term. And the more that come out, the more it feels like it's almost like a concerted effort to put them on ice, make teams not want to actually go ahead and get them, and just kind of see it play out, and it almost feels like there was a couple teams that were more or less kind of waiting the situation out, like the Jets, the Dolphins, a couple others like that were kind of in a standstill. And it looked like for the better part, the Jets kind of started to say, okay, we're just going to move on and, we're going to get Corey Davis, potentially get Juju, just continue to make moves. We saw what the Patriots are doing. So it's all like, it just feels like too much of a calm before the storm,
Yeah, no, I get it, because I certainly had the same reaction yesterday when this all started to come out, that it's just, it seems very fishy. And then, like you said, you hear about the, potential connection with the McNair family. Like, at the very least, Busby was living in the same neighborhood with Bob McNair. Maybe not the next door neighbor, but in the same neighborhood. And then you wonder how well they knew each other. So, yeah, there's no doubt about that. It's strange, man, and I'm curious to see the way that this plays out. We're joined here.
Hey,
go ahead.
And not for nothing, too, Donald, because I know everybody thinks because I am. I'm dead set for the Dolphins to get Deshaun, right? But the other side of the coin is let's say that the Dolphins kind of want to play ball, not necessarily for themselves, but to keep him out of the division. Would they facilitate a trade to get him to Carolina, to the Niners? Would they maybe throw in, let's take the 49ers. Let's say Jimmy G ends up going to Houston. Would we maybe throw in the 3rd overall pick to potentially get back maybe a Bosa and an Ayuk or a Debo? Like, is that maybe what we were waiting for? Like, it's not just, okay, we're waiting to get Deshaun Watson. It could have been we're waiting for another team to finalize their deal. We jump in maybe as a third team, and we kind of come out ahead of it, No,
that makes a lot of sense. What did you think about the center signing today, Matt Skura? When I first heard about this one, my first memory of Skura were the snapping problems that he had last year. So I was a little bit concerned, like, how do you bring in a center who can't snap? When you take a step back, though, he is a highly regarded blocker.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the fourth. He's 4th in the NFL in highest pass block win rate, 10th in the NFL in highest run block win rate. So, and it's a 1-year deal, so it's like a show-me type of deal. Do you think there's potential here that this could really work out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, think about it. Like, he was coming off if we skip out 2020 and COVID and everything crazy, because I think he did get COVID too as well.
Yeah.
If we go back 2019, the guy was a 5-year, $50 million center potentially, and somehow, some way, or whatever it may be, mental block or what have you, he just kind of forgot to snap the ball. To me, it's more interesting kind of what happened with Karras, because Karras signed a 1-year, $4 million deal with the Patriots. And then after signing it, it was that he couldn't wait for the Dolphins to basically, make a decision, which I found is odd because, what are we saving $4 million for? Like, what is that? What is the crunch to have that 4, maybe 5 if you need to up the offer and beat the Patriots? Like, what is it really, consisting of? It's just odd,
Yeah. Now, with the acquisition of Fuller, wouldn't this mean that, all of a sudden Jakeem Grant or Albert Wilson are a little bit redundant? You would imagine one of them probably isn't still on the team next year, and I'm thinking maybe Jakeem Grant needs to pack his bags. What do you think?
So to start the offseason, earlier in the offseason, talking about a week or two into it, Barry Jackson floated 5 potential names as salary cuts that could potentially, save some cap space. It was Bobby McCain, it was Albert Wilson, it was 19, it was Fitzgerald, and it was Alan Hearns.
I love that you can't use his name, and I respect that. We all know who 19 is. I respect the fact that you don't use his name.
Yeah, but let me just say this. If Kenny Golladay was to sign and come over here, I would have been all on board to keep 19 just so he does not use that number. But that's a different tangent. I don't know, man. Sorry, I completely lost it. What were we talking about just now?
Which receiver could get released ultimately.
Yeah. So those 5 names that I just said, if you cut them all and release them, they give you about $15.2 million, right? That's enough cap space to, sign a potential running back. Not to bring it back to DW, but DW's cap space is 15.9. So there still feels like there's another move to be made here. What that is or what it entails it's what's kind of waiting for the shoe to drop.
How depressed would you be, and it may not be in the cards now, but if Deshaun Watson went to the Jets, how depressed would you be?
I don't think I would be depressed, Donno. I think everybody around me should get the hint that it's going to be depressing because not only do we have to see him twice a year, but now you have to hear my mouth for the next decade about how great this quarterback is that we potentially screwed up.
We're joined here by Juan Cardona. He's at Exclusivity on Twitter. Does a fantastic job here at Onside Radio and also for the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I kind of got my hopes up, Juan, for Chris Carson because there was a report that may have been false. But the Dolphins did add Malcolm Brown, who had a nice yard per carry average last year. What do you think about that move?
It was interesting. I was kind of looking at the numbers of everybody we signed, and between Malcolm Brown, it was Jacoby Brissett and Adam Butler. Between those 3 players, we gave them on 1-year deals. We gave them $9.75 million. When we cut Calvin Noy, and everybody assumed that was going to be basically the cut for basically a big time player to come in, right? Mm-hmm. We saved $9.775 million. So I mean, just simple math. It looks like we just took the salary from Van Noy into those 3 guys, and it's interesting, It's interesting to think about the penny pinching that they're doing and the need for it, I guess.
Last thing I want to ask you, this is a good question that came in from Mike at Vero Beach Fin Fan, and I know you're going to like this because it has to do with Deshaun Watson. He says, it's been kind of quiet about Xavier Howard. He would be part of the Watson trade, in my opinion. He's a Houston native. And he adds $9 million to the cap. So, yeah, that's a good question for you, Juan. Do you think if a trade does happen for Deshaun Watson that there's a decent chance Xavier Howard could be part of that? Because he does want a lucrative extension, so he would be more expensive down the road here as well.
I think 2 signings that could potentially be crucial. I mentioned one was Adam Butler, and then the other is Justin Coleman. We're looking at 2 potential a cornerback and a lineman. where it's been kind of rumored, kind of not, that potentially maybe Wilkins or Xavier could be included in the deal. It looks like insurance policy kind of for both, not so much Justin for Xavier outside, but you can kick Noah outside if potentially need be, and then Justin could fight it out with need him in the spot. But Adam Butler is kind of curious because he's a young dude, and potentially you'd be wanting him to replace what's going to be Benito Jones's spot or Godshaw's spot, and those were like less than 200-300 snaps for the year. So for a player to come in and kind of sign off on that, especially being young and wanting an opportunity to potentially get a bigger deal in 2-3 years when the cap is exploding, it does point out that it could be in the works where Wilkins could be in the move. Xavier could be in the move because, again, you look at that Calvin Noy move and you're like, okay, they need more money for potentially an extension for Baker or for Gesicki. Or even, hey, let's rework Xavier's deal. We know he's asking for more, but none of those three things have happened. So, it could, like I said, Deshaun could be either coming here or we could be helping him move somewhere else. But it definitely feels like the calm before the storm, and we're just waiting for Storm to make landfall.
And I appreciate your time and your hard work as always. What do you planned this weekend, by the way, for one-on-one?
Oh, I got a lot, bro. We're gonna do tech that excites me. That's my weekly piece.
I like that.
We're gonna do the Mars. We're gonna do the Mars rover landing and kind of how that's kind of exploded to where everybody's trying to go into Mars and what that could potentially entail.
Would you go to Mars? Like if we have 20 years from now,
Bitcoin's being accepted in Mars, I'm gone, bro. I'm getting a by the moon, like with a lake view. Like I'm going all out.
Here's the reason why I wouldn't. And I love sci-fi, I love space, but I've ridden Mission Space at Epcot and it made me sick. Okay. And that's like a 3-minute ride. Like so if I get in like the space simulator for 3 minutes and it makes me nauseous, if I get on a rocket ship for 3 months to go to Mars, I'm gonna feel like shit for 3 months. So I'm not going, Juan. Like if this planet were dying. And there are conflicting reports, right? Because the people on the far left say it's dying, the people on the far right say you're ridiculous. I'm always somewhere in the middle, so I don't know. The planet may be dying, it may not be. But if the planet is dying, I think I'm dying with it, bro, because I don't want to be sick for 3 months.
Taking that L?
Yeah, I'm taking the L.
I feel you. It's tough. I mean, hopefully within the next 5 years, that 3 months get cut into maybe a week, and who knows? Elon Musk goes ham and puts some effort into it.
I love it, man. Have a great show, one-on-one. Thank you so much, Juan. And yeah, I love it. And guys, remember, you can hear one-on-one Sundays 9 a.m. Juan Cardona, you just heard from there, dominates the airwaves with one-on-one. From sneakers to video games to tech to your favorite South Florida sports team. Tune in every Sunday to one-on-one exclusively on the home for sports talk in South Florida, OnSideRadio.com.
The man of the match with South Florida's own Alex Donno. Weekdays 1 to 5 p.m. on the home for Inter-Miami football. OnSideRadio.com.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that. Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable
Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
If you missed Onside Zone with Big O, you missed.
The sport is headed in a direction where it's going to die because the fan base is dying. It's people my age or older that follow baseball. And we're dying. And so they're not getting any of the new fans. Young fans, the whole sport is all screwed up, dude. From the cheating scandals to the way they mismanage it, by the way it has not gone and changed with modern times, the fact that baseball players are so freaking ignorant that they don't understand that they've got to market their own game. The wussiest thing in the world is you hit a home run on me, so now I'm going to plunk you. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
The Onside Zone with Big O. Weekdays 11 to 1 p.m. Only on OnsideRadio.com. You're listening to the only sports station in South Florida that likes to take your calls. 888-441-4623. We connect with a South Florida sports fan because we are South Florida. Locally owned and operated. 888-441-4623. OnsideRadio.com. South Florida's home for real sports talk.
Look out, world, we're getting strong. The future's here and we belong. She can STEM, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. Or clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, she can STEM, so can you. Find a cure, invent something new. There's no challenge in the world that she can't face. She can STEM.
Learn more at She Can STEM. A message brought to you by the Ad Council.
Keeping you informed in the world of sports. With an OnsideRadio.com sports update.
The Miami Dolphins continue their offseason and have found their starting center for this upcoming season after signing former Raven Matt Skura to a one-year deal. Finns made a bigger splash in free agency later in the day, agreeing to a one-year deal worth $10 million for wide receiver Will Fuller. The Miami Heat had their win streak snapped last night after falling to the Memphis Grizzlies 89-85. The Heat are still the fourth seed in the East and return to action tomorrow night at 8 against the Indiana Pacers to kick off a 4-game homestand. The Florida Panthers are back on the ice tonight to take on the Nashville Predators. The Cats are entering tonight's matchup on a 4-game win streak and are right behind Tampa Bay for the Central Division lead. Puck drops at 7 p.m. With your Onside Sports update, I'm Alex Aguirre, and coming up next, it's more Man of the Match with Alex Donno, and Game Night with Michael Christian is right after at 6 p.m. You are listening to the only locally owned sports station in South Florida, OnsideRadio.com.
You're listening to OnsideRadio.com. Catch up anytime by downloading the MyTuner Radio app. OnsideRadio.com, South Florida's true hometown station. Welcome back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can reach out anytime on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
Welcome everybody who's been texting the show at 844-416-8123, and everyone who's been chatting with us on YouTube today. In case you haven't joined the YouTube party, you just go to YouTube, search Onside Radio. You'll see that there's the live broadcast, which is my show here going on right now. Click, and the YouTube chat is a lot of fun. You can chat live with us here while we do the show. We welcome our guy Tony 2 times into the chat room. Oh, this is so great. I don't think I've seen this guy in here before. I don't know who's behind this, but I love the name. Bromar Smelly. You think that's Omar Kelly in disguise? Like, I know how to throw Donno off the set. He'll never know if I sign in as Bromar Smelly. Brandon Flood is in. He says, I'm late to the party. I was trying to get some Top Shot drops, he said. You know, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this at this point because this Top Shot phenomenon has been going on for weeks now. you guys know I'm pretty into crypto. I'm not Mr. Crypto like Big O, who is he has become the Gordon Gekko of crypto. Like, he is all in. I'm into crypto, and Top Shot is like kind of in the crypto family, but I know virtually nothing about NBA Top Shot except that people are talking about it. And our guy who we just had on the show, Juan Cardona, is very into NBA Top Shot. In fact, Alex, you should have seen this. Like 3 weeks ago, I get a string of direct messages on Twitter from Juan Cardona, who is like, he's ranting like a lunatic about this NBA Top Shot and how like I need to get into it. And like I go through, like, he sends me this whole string of messages, and he's sending me links to news stories about it. And like my head is spinning. Like he throws me like 12 messages about it. And I just respond, "Oh, that's awesome." And I had no idea what he was talking about. And then like 2 days later, I see everybody like, "Oh, I'm getting my my NBA Top Shots." I'm like, I don't know how to do it, man. I just keep buying more Bitcoin. I don't know about these NBA Top Shots, but at least the Bitcoin's working out for me, man. Oh, man. Oh, and Herman, I love our guy Herman Cueva is in the chat. He says, "I'm still here." He says, "Bromar is a Big O fan. He's pretty cool." All right, so the people are vouching for Bromar Smelly. So we will allow him to keep using that name. And Omar Kelly is going to be joining us tomorrow, during his he usually joins us at 4:30 on Fridays to talk a little Miami Dolphins football. Bromar Smelly in the chat had sent out "The Earth is Flat." He wrote that. I've looked into it. I don't believe it is flat. A few years ago, probably more than a few years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I went on one of those YouTube rabbit holes. Do you ever go on that where you click on one video and then if you just let it ride, it'll bleed into the next video? It'll bleed into another video. I must have spent a good 40 minutes watching these videos of like alleged scientists. I don't know who these lunatics actually were, but these alleged scientists explaining that the Earth is actually flat. And for like 20 of the 40 minutes, I was kind of thinking, that's a little clever. Tell me more about this ice wall at the end of the Earth. Tell me more about how when you think like a plane is flying straight, they're actually flying in a circle, which makes you believe they're going around the Earth when they're really just going around the flat Earth. But, it's just like 20 minutes in. And then by the time I get 40 minutes in, I'm like, this is the most ridiculous goddamn thing I've ever seen. So, no, I came to the conclusion the Earth is not flat. But I've been there, man. Open minds are important, right? Because do the research and figure out why it's definitely round, okay? There's math that goes into that. Because a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, the Earth is definitely round." Then you ask them, "Well, how can you prove it?" I don't know, bro. I don't know. So do the research so your opinion is educated. I recommend that. Another rabbit hole that I went down a few years ago, again, it's like 10 years ago, I went down the rabbit hole of, did we really land on the moon? Because that's a big conspiracy theory. I spent months watching videos and reading articles about it, and ultimately I came to the conclusion that we did. And I can tell you that I know a lot more about why we did land on the moon than most people do because I did the research and I educated myself, okay? I thought, oh, how do we get through the Van Allen belt of radiation? No, we did it, bros. We did it. We did land on the moon. I can virtually guarantee that. That's a lock. Here's the latest on Deshaun Watson. So the NFL has confirmed they are investigating it. So there are things happening here. This is from ProFootballTalk.com. The NFL is investigating allegations that Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson sexually assaulted multiple women. In a letter to Tony Busby, that's the attorney for the women accusing Watson, NFL Special Counsel for Investigations, Lisa Friel, confirmed the investigation. And, Lisa Friel, a woman, she's not going to let him off easy. Like, she's not going to leave a stone unturned. When you talk about potential sexual assault allegations, I'm sure that that she's going to make sure they look into it fully. She said, quote, "I became aware of the lawsuits you filed." This is her letter to Busby, the lawyer. "I became aware of the lawsuits you filed yesterday, as well as the one you filed this morning, which contained various allegations of misconduct by Houston Texans player Deshaun Watson," she wrote in the letter. And, of course, Busby posted the letter on Instagram. again, he makes it all about himself. So she sends him a personal correspondence. He posts it on Instagram. And again, I'm not saying, this is not me saying the allegations are false. This is me saying the lawyer is a clown. Either way, like this is not my commentary on the accusations. They might be true. They might not be true. I just think that the lawyer looks like a sideshow. He's Saul Goodman. She continued, I am writing to let you know that the league has opened an investigation into these allegations and to request the cooperation of your clients in our investigation. Such cooperation would begin with engaging in Zoom interviews with myself and another league investigator, at which, of course, you would be present. Please let me know at your earliest convenience if your clients are willing to assist us with our investigation of their allegations. And then the story continues here from ProFootballTalk.com. Michael David Smith wrote this for Pro Football Talk. He says, Watson has denied the allegations made against him, regardless of the outcome of the lawsuits or any criminal investigation that may transpire. The NFL can conduct its own investigation and suspend Watson if it finds he violated the NFL personal conduct policy. So this is not just going to go away. Like, this story is not just going to disappear, right? We had one allegation yesterday, a second one last night, more today, more coming in. Apparently there are now 9 allegations now, up to 9 women. And like you just heard there, the NFL has confirmed that they are reviewing it and they're doing their own investigation. So I don't know what the outcome is going to be. The outcome might very well be the NFL decides he didn't do anything wrong. The courts may decide that, or the courts may say, no, you owe these women money. But anyone who thought that, hey, this is just going to be swept under the rug and that the story was going to end yesterday, no, it's not the case. It's a pattern here. It's a pattern. Either someone's really out to get Deshaun Watson, or he's not the perfect angel that we thought he was. Because, again, no history of any wrongdoing, no history of any misconduct. Like, he seemed to be, a guy that had his crap together. It may or may not be the case now when you see multiple allegations come out. 844-416-8123 is how you reach us on the text line. That's 844-416-8123. We're going to get the crossover with our good friend Michael Christian when we come back. He hosts Game Night every night from 6 to 7 p.m. Hey, Onside Radio enters Kai's Corner with Kai Chen Chisholm every day from 10 a.m. to noon. Join Kai as he discusses the biggest stories in South Florida sports. So tune in every day, 10 a.m. to noon, for Kai's Corner on the home for South Florida Sports Talk, OnsideRadio.com.
The man of the match with South Florida's own Alex Donno. Weekdays 1 to 5 p.m. on the home for Inter Miami football. OnsideRadio.com.
Look out, world, we're getting strong. The future's here and we belong. She can STEM, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. Or clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, she can STEM, so can you. Find a cure, invent something new. There's no challenge in the world that she can't face. She can STEM.
Learn more at She Can STEM. A message brought to you by the Ad Council.
Ashiro's work is never done. You care for the house, the kids, and our future. We're so grateful for all you do. Now it's time to care for yourself and save a little more for retirement. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to boost your retirement savings now. Visit aceyourretirement.org today.
A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Parents, we know we can't protect our kids from everything. Eventually, they're going to bump their heads or scrape their knees. But we can protect them from 6 types of cancer. HPV, or human papillomavirus, is a common, preventable virus that can cause cancer later in life. The HPV vaccine prevents human papillomavirus and all the cancers it can cause. The American Cancer Society recommends getting your sons and daughters the HPV vaccine starting at age 9 to protect them later in life.
Join the Inter Miami family in 2021 by becoming a 2021 season ticket member. Enjoy enhanced access benefits and pricing not available to general fans. Visit intermiamicf.com/tickets for more information.
You're listening to OnSideRadio.com. Catch up anytime by downloading the MyTuner Radio app. OnSideRadio.com, South Florida's true hometown station. You're listening to the station with more live and local sports talk than anyone else in South Florida. OnSideRadio.com, broadcasting from South Florida to the world. Welcome back to the Man of the Match with Alex Donno. You can reach out anytime on the Onside Sports Line, 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623.
Yeah, welcome back into Man of the Match here on Onside Radio. Huge thanks to everyone who took part today. Tito Manach, Alex Aguirre, awesome work by both of these gentlemen here. Ira Winderman, Juan Cardona, and Kyle Krabs all joined us today and brought great information. We've had so much, man, some serious sports stuff, and with we had a lot of new information today with Dolphins moves coming up. Will Fuller being signed, of course. New details with Deshaun Watson. So I had a couple of more fun off the wall stories I didn't get to today. I'm going to save those for tomorrow. So depending on how tonight goes, maybe we'll have a little bit more fun tomorrow. But let's bring on our good friend Michael Christian, who does a great job hosting Game Night every day from 6 to 7 o'clock. And Michael, first off the bat, I have to ask you, nothing to do with sports. Are you, or maybe you have already, are you watching the Snyder Cut of Justice League? Any interest in that whatsoever?
So I haven't watched it yet.
I'm going to watch
watching that most likely on Sunday, but I am not excited about it. That is the truth of the matter.
Are you hearing any buzz? Because I've kind of kept myself away. I've just had so much other stuff to do today. I haven't read reviews or anything. Are people talking nicely about it, or is it kind of a train wreck? Do you have any idea?
So from what I can tell online, it looks like people are actually looking forward to it, and they think it's pretty good. The early reviews are positive.
Okay,
now,
good.
In my opinion, I think the early reviews are positive because it was such a bad movie the first time around that even if it's just a little bit better, everyone's like, wow, what an improvement. But it still doesn't make it a good movie. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's going to be great. I have no hope with the DC universe.
Yeah, and it pains me because DC was my first love. I mean, when I was a little kid, I didn't really care a whole lot about the Avengers, a little bit about the X-Men because they had a good cartoon back in the day. They had some good material. But, I was all about Batman and, to a lesser extent, Superman growing up. That was my big two. Everything else, Spider-Man, I liked it. Captain America I wasn't that big on. X-Men a little bit, but it was all about Batman and Superman for me. So it pains me that the DC universe has just been pretty crap overall. So I hope it's good. And like you said, it's going to be basically impossible to be as bad as the original version of Justice League. So it's probably at least a slight improvement there. What did you make of the Will Fuller deal? I really like it. Now it's interesting. I kind of wonder if he might have been the receiver that told Josina Anderson, or sorry, was it her, or no? It was it was an NFL reporter that was told that by an anonymous receiver that he would only even consider signing a one-year deal because of how crap the market was. So I wonder if that might have been Will Fuller. But what do you make of this addition for the Dolphins?
I think it's a good addition for the Dolphins. I mean, obviously the injury history is not something that's very promising, but he's always been good. When he's out there on the field, he contributes. He really runs those deep routes well. The speed is impressive to watch, and the Dolphins really needed some speed on their side of things. So I think it's a good move for them, and a one-year contract I think was another great idea. I mean, he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Maybe this is a prove-it deal for him and for the Dolphins as well. And if he can stay healthy, play a full 16 games, which he's never done before in his career, then he could look for that other payday. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was him. But I think, the Dolphins needed a little bit more electricity out there at that position, and Will Fuller can bring that if he's healthy.
More and more, a lot has changed since I spoke to you last. Is there a ton more of these allegations and lawsuits coming in on Deshaun Watson? Kind of where I'm at, Michael, is I think to me, any teams that are interested in acquiring him kind of have to hit the pause button and wait to see how everything plays out first. What do you think?
Yeah, you can't make a move right now. You need to sit back and take in all the information. And, I'll talk about it a little bit on my show as well, but I just feel like it's so up in the air. This can be fake, but we can't assume that. I really I just don't know. I haven't done enough research on it, and I'm never going to claim to be a person that knows for a fact. And so it's such a sticky situation that you kind of got to keep your hands off of it as long as you can until it comes out to be either completely false. And if it's true, then again, you don't touch the guy with a 10-foot pole. Let him stay wherever else he needs to be.
Amen to that. Have a great show coming up. What do you have planned for game night?
Appreciate it. Got to talk Dolphins. Going to talk about that Will Fuller edition as well as Robert Foster, who I think are two speed guys that help out a lot. Gonna jump in and talk a little bit of gaming, and then we have Alana Tahauer coming on. We're gonna talk basketball, specifically the Miami Heat, who lost last night, but I'm really not too worried about that loss. I think it was, back-to-back things happen.
Yeah, I mean, 11 wins in their last 13. It's like you're not going to be perfect the rest of the way. I didn't lose a second of sleep over that loss, so it's going to be good stuff. Have a great show, Michael.
Appreciate it, man. Have a good rest of your evening.
So Michael Christian, 6 to 7 o'clock every night on game night. Hey, remember, Miami Dolphins fans can always count on the best coverage at OnsideRadio.com because every week you can keep up with your favorite team as Dolphins writer Omar Kelly joins us with exclusive reports and when news breaks. So catch the EJDConstruction.com Miami Dolphins report on the home for Dolphins fans everywhere, OnsideRadio.com.
Now streaming online. Onside Radio, the only choice for the South Florida sports fan. Welcome to OnsideRadio.com. Broadcasting from South Florida to the world. No station in South Florida provides more live and local sports talk.
This is like rock and roll with no music.
Follow us on social media at Onside Radio.
Hey, it's Big O for EJD Construction, your custom home builder, additions and home remodeling. Our lives have changed. We're making our homes more of an oasis. Call the right place. Call the right people. Eric at EJD Construction for over 16 years. A-rated member of Angie's List in the Better Business Bureau. 305-433-4843. That's 305-433-4843 for EJDConstruction.com.
You're listening to OnsideRadio.com. Catch up anytime by downloading the Radio.net app. OnsideRadio.com, South Florida's true hometown station. Onside Radio presents Game Night with Michael Christian. Welcome to the show with a gaming culture and a sports perspective. On Game Night, Michael covers everything from breaking sports news to the latest gaming information, insight, and interviews. To reach out to Michael, dial 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623. The text line is 844-416-8123. That's 844-416-8123. Here's your host, Michael Christian, with tonight's edition of Game Night.